Directing traffic, gonna go deep, has a man deep. It is caught for the touchdown. Corey Davis.
What do you do? Attacks leverage. If he's outside leverage, he doesn't want you to beat him outside. So stem towards him, hold him outside, stamp outside. Drive face, full cell vertical, get into the blind spot, and he absolutely burns him. Corner is lost. He literally has no idea where Wilson is.
Really high floor, really high ceiling. We could be talking about the best corner in the league. Sauce can do that.
This is actual film. This is actual football talk. It's a football show. We're supposed to talk football, not storylines.
And you are watching another edition of Blitz. Kyle, let's talk storylines, my friend. I missed you. I missed the chat for about 2 weeks. What's up, everybody? And before we get into the chat, Kyle, man, what's up?
Not too much, Joe. It's funny. I don't really focus too much on the intro, that specific part when you say that, but I was actually thinking a lot about that specific line right before you said it. It's very ironic.
It's just annoying because I have the new intro and I played the new intro last week, but I was by myself and I thought it was going, well, swimmingly. And then people commented after like we couldn't hear it. I was like, oh, that's great. That's just great. So I got to figure out how to get the sound to that. I got to figure out how to download it. I don't know. I suck with technology. I really do. But I'm excited to be back. I went to Turks and Caicos for about a week. That was fun. But I'm ready to talk some football, Kyle. I was counting today. Had a little event, whatever. I had some downtime for work today, and I was counting. I have like 26 reviews to put out. Each of them got to be at least 2-3 hours. So I got so much shit to put out. So I think I'm going to start tomorrow or the next day with McDonald, and then we'll go from there. Aaron Rodgers has 4 parts. Sauce has 2 parts. Q might have 2 parts. So much film to do the next couple of months. But I have it pretty much all prepped. I have to watch a couple of more of the draft picks fully, and then move on from there. With that being said, though, Kyle, by the way, did you watch? And then we'll get into the chat before we get into some of the draft picks and stuff like that. Because we're ready to talk about the draft picks. Have you watched any more of the draft picks? Have you been able to get any more film on your hands from these guys?
I definitely have more film. I was probably going to wait a little bit more to delve a little bit more into it. And I haven't watched your stuff yet because I haven't seen it yet. But I'm
still waiting for you. I am waiting. I'm making everybody else wait until you watch my Bryce Huff review. I'm still waiting.
I tell you what, Joe, if you can send me the MP4 of that Bryce Huff, because I don't have that, I'll watch it. It'd be easier than me logging into the site because I don't know how far back I'd have to go to find it.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on because that was 3-4 years ago, so it might be a little bit different.
It's the only one I didn't watch.
So yeah, you owe it to me. So I'm not. I will hold everybody else out until Kyle motherfucking Smith watches my shit. So, but let's see. We got Eccles suspended. I don't know if you saw that. He's suspended for the first game.
I did see that.
Kyle, would Eccles even ideally knock on every piece of wood you have? Is he even going to play in the first game? Like at the end of the day, maybe in dime looks and things like that, but it doesn't really affect the Jets so much. And I'm not even convinced that he's necessarily better than a Bryce Hall, in a one-on-one type scenario. Now we can get into questions about should the Jets be carrying a corner 5 for $2.5 million, which we can talk about with him. We can talk about that with Ashton Davis. We can talk about that with a few players, but he was suspended, came down. We don't really know necessarily what it was from. They just put it out per the transaction wire. He has been suspended for a game. Some people think it's stemming from he had I don't know if he was racing or whatever. He got reckless driving, failure, not failure to maintain lane, improper lane change, reckless driving. So it's most likely he's probably racing and seeing the 2 cars he was driving. Some type of I forget what it was. Another guy was like a 2019 BMW. So they might have been racing, but nonetheless, that is the suspicion. That's what it's because of. Some people said gambling, which I didn't hear.
That's what was going to be my guess, gambling. And I wasn't really looking into what other people were saying about it, but I assumed it was gambling because there was some report that was out a couple days ago about how the NFL is prepping to start to unleash more suspensions related to gambling. So it seems like there's going to be a lot of players who are going to get at least, minor infractions, couple games or whatever for gambling. So I just assumed that he was one of those. I don't know for sure.
Jameson Williams got suspended for that too, right? He's suspended 4 to 6 games or something
like that. Yeah, it's definitely multiple games.
But players are allowed to gamble on sports, obviously outside of football.
But they can't do it at the facility.
Yes, so it's from the facility, and that's why Jameson Williams and some of his other teammates or whatever got suspended for that. Which hopefully you'd have somebody to explain that to him. I'm sure the Bet didn't need to get in that very moment for Jameson Williams. So it's probably just a little bit of an oversight, but it is what it is. So he's suspended. And I've heard some, which by the way, I've seen a lot of stuff the last couple of weeks from just like corner talk and saying we don't have a lot of depth. I don't understand how we don't have depth. I think our depth is actually excellent at corner, considering the rest of the league and stuff like that. And then past that, I've seen some stuff about these players on online, just on Twitter the last couple of weeks. I really haven't been active on streams or doing my own reviews. And I see these reviews and just like positive, one slight negative. It's like, did we draft a bunch of Hall of Famers with some of these reviews coming out? But you're going to get the real stuff here in a couple of days, weeks, months. It's going to be grueling. But I'm excited. I'm really excited to get to these players. I'm excited to do McDonald. I just finished Tippin. Now I'm really delving into Carter Warren's 2021 and Izzy starting to play a little bit more in 2021 where I'm at right now. So that's fun. But moving past that, Eagle says it again, what's up, Eagle? Swolsey says Q, which is a nice question. Why do some reputable commentators believe the Dolphins are better bet to win the AFC East over the Jets, Bills, for that matter? Going position group by position group, other than wide receiver, where are they better? Which, by the way, I want to throw this out there as well. We were going to do it this week, but we're going to start doing it next week, where obviously it's a dry time. For me, it's not dry time at all. It's probably the most busy time just because of the film reviews. But with that being said, it's pretty dry. There's not really much to talk about at this very moment, minus like some minor OTA stuff. So starting next week, maybe the week after that, because Kyle doesn't do every week, we're going to start doing like stat revisits. Like we predicted the stats for last year. We're going to go over that. We're going to do superlatives. We're going to start doing kind of more shows that get us talking about different topics instead of just kind of talking about OTAs and some of the stupid shit we're going to be talking about tonight, and obviously talking with you guys. So, but Kyle, why do people think the Dolphins are a better bet to win the AFC East over the Jets or Bills?
I think coaching has to be one reason for sure. To this point, you'd have to say Mike McDaniel's a better coach than Robert Saleh. I mean, you could say that, well, Robert Saleh really hasn't, he hasn't really been given a great opportunity yet with the horrible quarterback play. But I mean, still, Mike McDaniel he had quarterback issues last year with Tua getting hurt on several occasions. Skylar Thompson having to come in for a couple of games. Teddy Bridgewater, even the backup, gets hurt for a little bit.
Robert Saleh had some quarterback issues too. I'm just saying.
He definitely did. And the Bills, I mean, the Dolphins, they went blow for blow with Skylar Thompson in Buffalo in the playoffs. So, Mike McDaniel definitely impressed as a rookie head coach. And let's not forget that Vic Fangio is now the defensive coordinator for the Dolphins.
That sucks. I really hate that.
Yeah. So I think you have to be kind of concerned about that if you're honestly a Jets fan. And coaching, as we know, matters in every sport, but I think especially in the NFL. So I would have to say that that's probably a reason. Another reason probably is just look at recent history. I mean, the Dolphins have quite dominated the Jets in head-to-head over recent years. And you say, oh, well, the NFL's like, it's a year-to-year league and there's so much, turnover that, who cares? This isn't the Adam Gase Jets anymore. Still, but that somewhat does matter. And I think the Dolphins roster top to bottom is very solid. I mean, you could say that, the Jets might have a slight edge than the Dolphins in, running backs per se, but the Dolphins still have a pretty solid group of running backs overall. You can say the Jets have better cornerbacks than the Dolphins, and I would take the Jets unit over the Dolphins.
You best.
I would. I'm just saying though.
Did you see that article though that had the Dolphins above the Jets? Did people not watch Xavier Howard last year?
I didn't see the article, but I saw like it was like I don't know if it was some stat or whatever person who put together like 32 teams, and I saw the ranking. And I saw that the Dolphins were 1. I think the Jets were 2, if I wasn't mistaken. So I did see that, if we're talking about the same thing. And I know that I saw that led into a whole big discussion and whatnot. But if you want to go defensive back units, if you just want to categorize that as a whole thing, if you want to talk at safeties too, we've been talking about safeties a lot and how it's a concern for the Jets. Javon Holland is an absolute stud at safety. He has been since his rookie year. And now he's got a great defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, who I think is going to really utilize him well as a chess piece.
Who's their strong safety? I forget off the top of my head right now.
I can't remember either way.
But with that being said, like, okay, you're going to give them safety. We're going to give them receivers.
Yeah, linebacker. I mean,
and what? Like, there's really not much. Like, they got rid of Gesicki. They don't really have much at tight end. The running backs are okay, but they don't have a Breece Hall type of player, which obviously we're assuming health there. Their defensive line it's decent, but it doesn't sniff our defensive line. You know, their linebackers have some players, but I'm still taking Mosley. You know, he's still at least
okay. If we're talking defensive line units as a whole, I mean, you know, they got Chubb on the edge. Who's the other edge? They have the draft pick from Miami, Phillips. Okay. So that you're talking, you could very well say an edge. They're superior to us. And then Christian Wilkins, he's definitely nowhere near the pass rusher that Quinnen is, but he's definitely very stout in the run game. Zach Sealer is definitely a very underrated player who doesn't get enough love. We'd love to have him on this team.
I'm not saying it's not good. I'm just saying it's not better than the Jets. It's just QB's elite. Carl Lawson is obviously going to take a step back up this year. You have multiple first-round draft picks. You have Bryce Huff, who had some of the best numbers in the NFL in terms of snap-by-snap basis, in terms of how productive he was, in terms of pressures and however else we're going to rank productivity. They have ridiculous depth there. So I didn't say the Dolphins weren't good on the defensive line, but I don't think they're near the Jets. I think they're very good, but the Jets are up there. You see the articles, but they're up there with the Eagles and the Niners as the best defensive lines in the league right now. Yeah. And then you pair that obviously with their corner group. And this is a reason why, like, I really, really want that extra safety. And maybe it could be Tony Adams. And I've been on the Tony Adams, bandwagon. I did
before anyone else that I can remember.
And I appreciate you saying that. And I was doing reviews of him or watching him at Illinois. Like, damn, I really like this guy. And then the preseason's like, damn, I really like this guy. And now people are starting to be like, oh, I like Tony Adams. Like, okay. But nonetheless, I like Tony Adams. But with that being said, in a Super Bowl, or let's be realistic, it's not necessarily a Super Bowl or bust year, but it kind of is a Super Bowl or bust year. Like, we're not getting Aaron Rodgers for shits and giggles and to make the division round. Like, who gives a shit about that? We want the Super Bowl. So in a year we want the Super Bowl, Tony Adams could be good. But I'd rather try out Tony Adams in a year we're going to go 4-13 or 5-12 versus a year where we're going to have to go up against Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen in the AFC Championship game. So I would like to see them, address that position with a John Johnson or whoever it may be. Kevin Byard's out there. They haven't made a splash yet, really, in free agency, and they try to make a few splashes. So could a guy like that join the Jets? And I think because you take that secondary, which is so freaking strong, and you pair that with the defensive line that's so freaking strong, it's great, but there's a huge missing link in that defense. And for a defense, whether it be a 2 or a 4 or 6 or whatever we're running, you can figure out ways to attack Jordan Whitehead as a strong safety or whoever it may be. So I would like to see them make a move at free safety and really, really round out that group. But nonetheless, in terms of the Dolphins, I think there's some spots we can have discussions over, but I think the Jets 1-for-1 are definitely a better team. I'm not saying the Dolphins aren't a good team. I think they can definitely make the playoffs. And we'll do that too, Kyle. I think they did that last year where we ranked the Jets position group and actually went through like some of the Jets better position groups versus the league. Maybe we'll do that with the defensive line, corners, which we're going to finish one. It doesn't matter. And some other spots. But yeah, throw it to you. I don't know if you have anything to comment on that. I kind of just went all over the place.
Yeah, I was just starting to think, I go back and forth with the offensive line, and I really want to believe in Becton a lot, and he definitely looks great. At the same time, I also have the concerns if, he loses all this weight, doesn't automatically mean that A, he stays healthy, and that B, he's a great player. I mean, part of the reason that what made him good and part of the reason you drafted him is because he's just such a mammoth of a human being. He's no longer that. So, you definitely have to wonder what he's going to be. I was just trying to compare the offensive lines in my head. So then I just pulled up the Our Lads, and I still would give the Jets the nod in terms of offensive line, but I definitely would. But Teron Armstead, when he's healthy, he's pretty damn good. Connor Williams, the center, definitely had a pretty good year for them. Robert Hunt, the guard, is pretty good. So, but then they have like two definitely liabilities with the USC tackle who they drafted, who was
Austin Jackson.
Yeah, big bust for them. Yeah. And then Eichenberg, who was the Notre Dame offensive lineman who they drafted, I believe, second round a couple of years back. He also was quite a disappointment as well. So, if the Jets do have the nod at offensive line, it's certainly not a huge gap, I don't think.
Nani wrote a good article about that in terms of the offensive line, if it hits its ceiling and if it hits hits its floor. Or falls down to its floor, whatever. The different ranges of the offensive line. And obviously, it's quite rangy, but you figure with health, which is something that's hard to assume at times, the Jets are going to be about an average offensive line. I don't think they're studly. I don't think they're bad. I think they're right about average. I think you have to assume that Becton, if healthy, obviously he's an upgrade from anything we had at tackle last year. And then Dwayne Brown, even though he's older this year, Kyle, like I'm going to take 38-year-old Dwayne Brown with a completely healthy shoulder over 37-year-old Dwayne Brown with a torn shoulder or whatever, whatever that was. So you'd assume that Dwayne Brown's going to be better. And then, center position, okay, Connor McGovern's near average. Could Tippmann be that in year one? And guess what? If he's not, then you have McGovern in there. So I think it's a near average offensive line. I'm happy with the depth that they brought in. Now, with that being said, if we have 6 or 7 tackle injuries like we did last year, we're fucked. But who isn't? Who in the NFL can go to their 7th tackle? It can't happen. So you have to assume some type of health on the offensive line last year. They're obviously decimated by injury there. So yeah. Kyle, I guess let's get into this. We're going to keep going through the chat. The chat's really going to fuel the show. So we'll keep going through you guys. Eccles, what are you thinking? And Becton, Kyle, the Becton stuff, you can take this in so many different directions. Year one, he starts 13 games. He gets injured in at least a few of them. He comes out. He came out of at least 2 or 3 games where he finished maybe the first quarter, the first half, whatever it may be. Okay, finishes the first year. He did pretty well his first year. He wasn't Tristan Wirfs his first year. Let's not act like he was a superstar because he did struggle. He struggled, like you pointed out, the one time against the I forget who the Bills defensive lineman was that one game who
both
destroyed
games.
him.
Mario Addison.
Okay, you had guys like Cleveland Farrell, who's now like a backup in the league, who fucked him up against the Raiders game. So he was solid. Okay, year 2, new staff comes in.
People like to overhype that Chargers game too. Majority of the game he was going against Ingram, not Bosa.
Yeah. Well, even that block against the Chiefs, where it's like, oh my god, he threw him. It's like, no, that was like all Alex Lewis, and he kind of just like he almost like hand checked him, like I call it, and whatever. But nonetheless, okay, year 2. Comes in, new staff. The staff doesn't seem to be thrilled with him just based on like the little leakings out of one Jets drive, whatever. He comes in heavy, and then he gets injured, which obviously is GBR's fault. All right, reset. Year 3 comes in. People were saying 400 plus pounds. He looked fat. He looked fat. He didn't look fat. He was fat, right? You're 400 pounds. It is what it is. And he's 340 now, which is great. And people say, oh, well, you lost 50 pounds to be 340. Yeah, it's good that he's 340, but he also had to lose 50 pounds to get there. You should never have to lose 50 pounds to get to 340. So they didn't seem thrilled with him last year. The whole thing happens. He moves to the right tackle. Then obviously he gets injured again. And he did the big bust stuff, quote tweeting people, arguing with eggs on Twitter, all this shit. And it frustrates us, and it frustrates me personally. I basically said I didn't really like him as a person. I could root for him as a player. Okay. Then he starts to make his way back onto my good side this offseason in terms of just, being friendly on Twitter, doing the workout stuff with other people. Okay, that's cool. Getting a little bit on my good side. And then he tweets out a couple of weeks ago, left, tackle. Okay. All right. Salah kind of brushes it off in the media, and it kind of rubs me a little bit the wrong way because just do it behind closed doors, whatever, brush it off. Couple of days ago, a week ago, whatever it was, Kyle, he comes, article out there, he gets quoted and basically saying like the Jets medical staff, I told the Jets medical staff that I didn't want to be right tackle, and basically blames the Jets coaches for his injury last year. And he's kind of sticking strong to I'm only a left tackle. So thoughts about that, Kyle? Because we can talk about the best.
I guess
5.
You should blame the Jets coaching staff for his injury when he was a left tackle too. But no, he's obviously blamed Greg Van Roten for that.
Yeah.
I always say Van Roten. It's supposed to be Van Roten. Yeah, I don't know, man. This seems like a guy who just I kind of get a little bit of the Jamal Adams vibes with him in that, he seems a little insecure. I mean, you must have to ask yourself, what's the goal behind tweeting something like that? I am period, period, left tackle, all that kind of crap. Like what's the goal behind tweeting that? Like,
it's like 15 people like, yeah, bro, go get the job.
Is this like to show the Jets coaching staff like, oh shit, Makai's unhappy at being right tackle. We better move him to left tackle. I mean, if anything, like that assuredly is not the way to go about it. It's not going to make them happy. Is it that you want people to support you online to like make you feel better? Like, oh yeah, Makai, we support you. We know we drafted you to be the left tackle of the franchise for the next 10 years. Like, what's the point of doing it? Like, I don't know. My coaches, when playing football in high school and college, always guys make smarter decisions. Like, this is what coaches would tell players. And he's a pro now, and I don't know. It seems like he repeatedly makes stupid decisions. I understand the guy wants to be a left tackle for a variety of reasons. That's his best year in college was at a left tackle. His first year as a pro, left tackle. Left tackles make more money. I get it. And
Some more
just
money.
think about what Fant said last year about switching between right and left tackle. You know, Fant is a guy who's certainly done it a lot, even though he was better on the left side. You know, they asked him at some point in the season last year, you know, because he had moved back and forth, and he said, like, you know, even though I could do it, it's not necessarily easy. You know, like you have to train your mind and your muscle memory and your kick steps and stuff. It's, you know, it takes some time to kind of, you know, unlearn the habits that you're used to. So I understand why Mekhi, you know, might want to move back to the left side, but I don't know.
It's not like he never played right tackle. Like he's played right tackle before. At the end of the day, the Jets coaching staff, whether you watch the Flight 2023 or whatever, it's which is basically a hype piece. We know what it is at this point. I like it, Kyle, but let's be realistic. It's a hype piece. So it's like watching YouTube highlights of the Jets, basically. But and all credit to them. They're great in what they do. They're not going to put negative shit out there. But he played right tackle in college. He was playing some right tackle last year, so it's not like he never did it. And do you think like he came into camp and he was a little bit out of shape, and the Jets were just push through it? Now there's the Becton side, the Jet side, the truth in the middle. Did he tell it to a strength coach that his knee was hurting? Did he tell it to his offensive line coach? Who did he tell that he was hurting, or that his knee was, you know, not feeling good? Now, did the Jets look into that? Did they, okay, hey doc, check out his knee. Is he fine? Yeah, A-okay. His knee is good. He's just out of shape. Okay, play through it. You know, like he clearly didn't he didn't obviously do himself any favors with the coaching staff. Like you look at the coaching staff and you see how much they're about character and all this shit. And Dwayne Brown last year, he's a warrior. They created that award for him last year. You have ABT, who would play middle linebacker if you asked him to, and never bitch about it. You have Carl Lawson, who could get some money on the open market, maybe a little bit less now, obviously, because it's May 25th or whatever, but he just restructured for no reason. It wasn't just, oh, we're going to move money around. He straight up, even if he breaches in incentives, took a $3 million pay cut by the Jets. He didn't have to do that.
But didn't he get some guaranteed money in it too, though? Like,
No, it was $15 million. Some money moved around. His base salary, I think, is like $9 million, and he could reach up to 12 with incentives. So regardless of what happens, he's getting $3 million less. No matter when it is, whatever, it's $3 million less. So you have all that shit, and maybe Becton wants to play left tackle. Sure, you could. I could, you know, whatever. I could fucking want anything. I could want $1 million house. Too bad I don't have it. But with that being said, just do your job, win the tackle job, and shut your fucking mouth at this point, right? Like, why put it out there? Because so you can get support from eggs on Twitter. Like, why do that? Because you know the staff isn't going to like it, and it's just childish at this point. Even if he does ball out, which is great, I want him to ball out because he's on the Jets. He balls out, Kyle. What's the chances he's even on the Jets next year? Like, based on all this shit, the injuries, he's going to want a lot of money. The Jets are going to say, hey, yeah, you had one good year out of 4. You know, okay, a year and a half of good out of 4. Like, is that enough to pay the guy? So is there any scenario where they pay him next year? And then on top of that, is there any scenario where he's not the right tackle? Like, even if he's somewhat close to Brown, it's not just, oh, him versus Brown for left tackle. It's also Brown's not moving. And people say, oh, well, Brown's not moving. Brown's fucking 38 years old, and he's been playing left tackle for 12 years in the NFL. It's different. And again, so it's not Brown versus Becton. Becton could beat out Brown, but in any scenario, is Becton at your left tackle and whoever at right tackle better than a lineup of Brown at left tackle and Becton Brown at left tackle and Becton at right tackle? Sorry.
Yeah, I think Dwayne Brown is playing left tackle and Mekhi Becton is playing right tackle. I don't think the Jets coaching staff is like, oh yeah, to make Mekhi Becton, the big crybaby, happy, who's coming off back-to-back complete injury seasons back-to-back. Yeah, we're going to move Mekhi back to left tackle. No, it's not happening. Now, to your other question that you posed about what's the percentage that he's on the team next year, I almost want to say like 50%, because we know what kind of talent he is. And just look at the intro of the show, where you used the
old intro, Kyle. You're rubbing it in my face.
The old intro. All right. You know, hey, listen, there's some Zach Wilson stuff in there. You know, and we're both guilty of missing on that one. Okay. So the words Hall of Fame are used in the same sentence as Mekhi Becton. Now we're probably not thinking that he's going to get anywhere, but at least, I mean, I guess he could still get there, but we're not necessarily anticipating that. But I mean, I'd be pretty shocked if he gets all pro this year, but he could, because he's that damn talented. If he's all pro, or he's like a really solid, like shoe-in for the Pro Bowl this year, he's going to be on the roster next year.
You also have to consider rust as well. He's going to come back rusty. There's no way you can't play football for about almost 2 years and like actual gameplay
And then
not be a little bit
also
rusty. They
switch
assume that
what
as well.
position you're playing on the offensive line.
And consider he doesn't want to play right tackle, Kyle. So he's really not going to want to do that.
Yeah, well, he's going to have to get himself in the mindset because, listen, Dwayne Brown's 38, played his whole career on the left side. They're not moving him to right tackle. Like, Mekhi really needs to understand that. He might want to be a left tackle, and he could secretly have those thoughts in his mind. I am a left tackle, and he could certainly tell that to teams in free agency negotiations next year. But, yeah, don't put it out on social media right now because it's not doing you any favors in terms of ingratiating you with the Jets coaching staff. Yeah, I almost want to say like 50% because if Mekhi Becton has a good season this year, I'm not really going to be all that surprised. And knowing that the Jets are thinking, okay, well, Carter Warren's a 4th-round pick who, dealt with some injuries in his own right, probably is not going to play that much this year. Max Mitchell, again, another 4th-rounder. Dwayne Brown, is he going to play next year? And even if he does, you don't view him as the future of the team. So the Jets, if he had a great year, they're definitely going to want to keep him on the roster for the foreseeable future. But two, if I'm the Jets, I also don't know that I'm giving him a long-term contract. I might be comfortable playing him on the franchise tag because, and it could even be a tag and trade scenario. But, franchise tag, Mekhi, let's see you stick together several healthy seasons, before you give him the big time deal. So I don't know. I guess we'll see.
There's just no way I see Brown sitting on the bench for $10, $11 million, not just because of the money, because he's actually a decent player. And then having Max Mitchell, who again, relative to expectations, was okay last year. But if he's starting all year, he was not a good tackle last year. Billy Turner's not a good tackle, and you can't assume Carter Warren in the 4th round is a good tackle right now. He has work to go not only in the pass game, but the run game specifically. He has a really long way to go in the run game. So I don't see there being any way that Becton's not the right tackle. And for the people who are going to say, oh, well, then he could just refuse to play. Good luck doing that because you're not getting shit next year then. Because if you're going to refuse to play and you just missed, almost half of your rookie or not half your rookie year, but a chunk of your rookie year, a quarter of your rookie year, and then 2 years.
He would be pissing tens of millions of dollars down the drain.
And then you get injured, and then you come in and you're fat, and then you refuse to play a spot. There's absolutely no way. It would be career suicide for him. So if they want to play right tackle, he's not going to play right tackle. And if he wants to get paid next offseason, he's going to play well at right tackle. So I don't see there being any way he's not the right tackle. I just cannot imagine a world where Brown's on the bench or playing right tackle and Becton's at left tackle. So I'm 97.5% sure that Becton's going to be the right tackle this year. And he's going to bitch about it, and it is what it is. Like, he hasn't. What has he earned? He hasn't earned anything.
No, he hasn't. Being the 11th overall draft pick and having a pretty good rookie year, it's nice and it's something you could put on your resume. But, the NFL is a what have you done for me lately business.
Yeah, he was just starting to get on my better side, and then it just all crashed and burned really quickly with the whole left tackle thing. It's just really frustrating. Again, he could have that opinion, but for him to put it out there, it's just childish. I don't care what anybody says. It's childish. Grow up. So past that, people are talking a little bit about Quinnen Williams in the chat, and I'll get to the chat. We're just kind of going through some topics. Quinnen Williams, Kyle, obviously people are talking about the price. I said I think it's going to be around 25. I think you said that he's not going to get that much or get more. I forget exactly what you said, but with Jeffrey Simmons around 24,
I thought he was going to get more.
Okay,
when we were talking about this like a couple months ago, I thought he was going to get upwards of 25.
So I still think it's gonna be around 25. I would almost bet it's right at 25. Now he went out on Twitter and obviously he deleted the Jets from his social media and unfollowed them and all the stupid shit that everybody does nowadays. It's probably more agent driven than it's player driven. It's just how the world works nowadays with social media. But past that, he liked the tweet. I believe it's Joey Jets or Joey something. Shout out to him. He put out there, which I have no idea if he has insider information or if he's just guessing. But he said it's not necessarily over the price; it's over the length of the contract. And then Quinnen Williams liked that. So people are like, "Oh, does he want 5 years?" And that's not where my mind went. My mind immediately went to he's 25 years old. Does he want a 3-year deal at $25 million so he can cash into another massive contract when he's 27, 28 years old instead of taking a 4 or 5 years deal and he's trying to cash in at 29, 30 years old? So that's what I think the hang-up is. I think the Jets are probably looking for 4 or 5 years to lock him down for quite a bit. And then, in that year 3, 4, 5, when Quinnen Williams making $25 million and there's 6, 7, 8 other players higher than him, it would be a bargain. So I'm thinking that he probably wants 3 years right now. Now, Does he want 3? The Jets want 5. They land at 4. I'm not exactly sure, but it's getting to the point where now, in a couple of weeks or months, whatever it is, like you have the mandatory camp and stuff like that. So I think it gets done soon, but it seems like it may be over years and not necessarily the price.
Makes sense. There's a couple players that kind of negotiate in this way. Kirk Cousins is one that comes to mind, and it seems like every 3 years this guy's getting fully guaranteed contracts. Kirk Cousins, and I'm not saying that Quinnen's shooting for a fully guaranteed contract, but so is he 25 or is he going to be 25?
I believe he's 25 right now he's 25 right now.
So if you think about it, let's say that one of his major goals is to get 2 more big time contracts. And I'm talking 2 mega deals, 2 separate contracts before his career is over. And then maybe get a couple 1-year things at the tail end of his career. Like he could cash in, get, whatever, I don't know, 3 years, 75 mil guaranteed, could that happen? I don't know. I'm not great with contracts. Neither are you right now. And then 3 years from now,
you're still Kyle. You're just still mad that I predicted the Kenny Stills contract in 2014. You're like, there's no way he's getting $9 million a year.
Still sour about that.
You're still salty. It's okay. It's okay.
It happens. Yeah. You were spot on about that. Good memory.
Good.
You just also like to really hang on your victories for sure. And then at 28 years old, 28 years old, he's going to be in his prime still. So then you get another big payday. But then so if his goal is to negotiate in 3-year windows, by the time he's 31, you still think, look at what Aaron Donald can still do at 31 years old. Like there would still be one other team that would be willing to give him another huge payday at 31 years old. So it kind of makes sense to negotiate in 3-year windows. But again, though, you kind of have to have, the rep to be able to do it. When I say the rep, I mean like the reputation, not necessarily the right agent or whatever. And Quinnen Williams, he's a 3rd overall pick. He had a historic college career and certainly had a tremendous season last year. So, I think he could do that. And I could see why the Jets wouldn't want to. Didn't Simmons and all these other guys and Deron Payne, they got 4-year deals, if I'm not mistaken, right?
4-year. Yep.
Giants, I'm forgetting his name at the moment. What's the name of the Giants defensive tackle?
Lawrence.
Yeah. So he also got a 4-year deal, if I'm not mistaken. So the Jets, hey, Quinnen, why are you going against the trend right now? So I could see why they're would be fighting over this. But again, we're speculating to a degree.
And it could be, of course we're speculating, film, not storylines. So, and it could be a thing where maybe, hey, if you want to pay me 4 years, then I want that higher price, because you're obviously assuming in 3 years he's going to get more than $25 million a year, assuming that he's going to keep up his level of play. And obviously, TV contracts, the contracts just go up. So we'd say, okay, listen, I'll play for 4 years, but then give me $27 million, $28 million a year, something like that. So I don't think it's like, I get people are saying like, just pay him, just do it. But negotiations are negotiations. You have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. We have no idea. So I would be patient and wait for it to happen. It's going to happen. Salah came out the other day and what do you call him? Like cue ball or something like that or whatever. Something like that. I'm not worried about it. So I don't think it's really anything to worry about. It'll happen. I think it's over the years. Again, a little bit of speculation, but when the guy specifically likes a tweet referencing it's about the years, not the money, then okay, it's about the years. At least that kind of out of his mouth. So what's up, Stephen Angle? Which I believe last time you were here, our Devils were still in the playoffs, but they're not, which kind of, I don't know if it's nice to see the Hurricanes get swept because they whooped our ass and then they get swept. So that means we really, really suck. I don't know. But it's weird. I don't know. You don't really watch a lot of other sports, but it's so weird that almost in both the NHL and the NBA and both the conferences, Eastern and Western, both rounds were almost sweeps. I think the Knights are playing tonight, and they're about to. They might sweep tonight. The Lakers were down 3-0. The Celtics might get swept, or no, they're 3-1 now too. But still, some blowouts in the conference championships, which is odd, but whatever. The only thing I was thinking about, I was watching the Florida Panthers and obviously the Heat as well. I'm just thinking, there's so many Miami Dolphins fans out there who are happy right now. I just want those teams to lose. So the Heat need to lose, the Panthers need to lose, because I don't want Miami Dolphins fans to be happy ever. So I will be rooting for. I'll be rooting heavily for the Nuggets, and then I forget in NHL right now. Just a little bit of brain.
I had the same thoughts. Because as a Knicks fan, you don't like Boston, you don't like the Heat, and you don't like the Lakers. I don't like the Lakers for a variety of reasons. Number one, they've always been good. So you just kind of okay.
I hate LeBron.
I'm tired of Steve, and I'm not a LeBron fan either.
I hate LeBron.
I respect talent. I definitely respect talent, but I'm not a fan of the guy personally or whatever. And so
he's a 6'8", 260-pound baby. He's just such a baby. I remember the one shot he was playing the Nets and he missed a buzzer beater 3 for the game. He's like, oh, I got poked in the eye and I was seeing 3 rims. Like, dude, shut the fuck up. LeBron
he still hasn't finished that autobiography of Malcolm X.
Yeah, he flops all the time. He complains, he whines, he bitches. I trust me. There's plenty of stuff all behind the scenes, Kyle, that we talk about. I don't like LeBron either, but yeah, I really do not like that man. So I'm happy when he loses. But with that being said, I do like Jimmy Butler though. He's a dog.
Yeah, you got to respect him for sure.
He's a dog, and I don't know. I didn't really know too much about him personally, but I think I watched him on what's the show where they eat really hot buffalo wings or whatever, and they get interviewed. It's some show on True TV or something like that, and he was on it. And he's actually really down to earth and seems like a cool guy. So
how much time do we have for story, real quick?
Well, we have an hour and 19 minutes before I got to do another podcast. But so go off. Go ahead if you find it captivating enough.
I guess it's at least somewhat interesting. So you mentioned True TV. So back in must have been 2011 or so, thereabouts. I got a call. I was working security at the time. Now you also work security as well, Joe. So I got a call from my boss, and he's like, "Hey, Kyle, we got an interesting job. Are you willing to take it?" I was like, "Okay, what is it?" He's like, "Well, we got a call from True TV, and they're filming a show, and they want to hire some security guards to play as cops on the show." So I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. And so we show up. It's someplace, I believe it was in Jersey City, if I'm not mistaken. There was this store called Jersey Wholesale Liquidators. So the True TV show was caught red-handed. And so they hired me and one other security guard from my company to be cops. I think that they thought, oh, this would be a good idea because, we have some police training, which security guards have almost zero police training, where, most security guards aren't allowed to carry guns and things like that. I don't know what they were thinking. Anyway, so they take me to this clothing store to get fitted in a cop outfit. And then they bring me back to the set and they introduce me to the producers, some of the other producers. And they're like, "We can't use this guy. He's got a beard. Cops don't wear beards like that." So I wasn't going to be the cop, but they had already paid me for the day, technically, through my company. So okay, we're going to use him as one of the criminals on the show. So I'm sitting around all day. And
profiling. Criminals have beards now.
Yeah. So they film the show. They're sitting around all day. And I'm sitting outside. There's a tent. And under the tent, they have all these snacks and drinks and stuff. I'm sitting with all these Z-list actors, people who are trying to make it in the acting industry. And, they're just talking to me about different gigs and stuff they've done throughout time. And eventually towards the end of the day, it must've been around 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. I get to film my set. And, basically my set was that, me and this other criminal, we went into the store and I'm tossing over a bunch of items, and then my criminal buddy's stuffing them into the backpack, and then they catch us on camera and yell at us and stuff. But anyway, so the I guess the whole point of the story is all this reality TV crap. It's so fake. This show, which is they're catching actual criminals. No, it was just a bunch of paid actors. Me, a guy with zero acting experience, was on a TV show. Anyway, they said I did pretty good though.
Yeah, it's my wife still watches Jersey Shore. It is what it is. She's very well off in her career, and I love her and all that stuff. But she'll turn that shit on. Really think they're really arguing about this shit, or they just fucking 45 years old?
They're definitely not. I mean, they're probably ad-libbing, some of the lines and stuff. I don't think they have a full script of it. You're exactly going to say this or whatever, but the producers and stuff and the writers are definitely saying, okay, we're going to put this person in this situation at this time, and you guys are going to argue over, So
yeah, no, it's bad. It's bad. But we have a super chat from Radovan Merkovic. Is that right? Radovan Merkovic. Explain NFL negotiations to me. So if they can't agree at first, what changes in 30 to 60 days where they come to a consensus? Never understood that. Kyle, you have any insight on NFL contract negotiations? You've played a cop, and or almost a cop. You've played a criminal. Now you're playing GM. So go ahead, explain NFL negotiations to the 103 of us in here.
This one seems a little more tough. 30 to 60 days. Where they come to a consensus, never understood that. I'm not so sure I'm understanding the question 100%.
He's just saying if you can't agree at first, how are you going to agree in 2 months from now, basically?
Well, I think eventually you realize, okay, the market has, okay, so let's say they've been in negotiations with Quinnen and his agent for 2 months now. Well, at the beginning of this process, there weren't other similar deals in the market made yet. Lawrence and Payne and some of these other guys that we had just mentioned, they hadn't made their deals yet. Now, being that they got their deals and you know what the gold standard is, Aaron Donald, it's like, okay, Quinnen's got to fit somewhere within there, and he's probably second behind Aaron Donald because he's the 3rd overall pick. So he's probably, now you have like a floor set. Okay, there's no way he could get any lower than Payne because clearly he was drafted higher than Payne. He's a better player than Payne. Simmons, who they have had like kind of like a similar career and being like, I guess you could say equally good. What I said a couple of weeks ago was that Simmons, I think, has been consistently better throughout his career, but Quinnen had the higher end year this past year.
Yeah.
And being that Quinnen was the 3rd overall pick, and he didn't also have, he did have the whole gun legal issue, but I think it was kind of mostly just a mistake. Whereas
that was an
Simmons,
oversight.
Yeah. And Simmons, if you guys don't forget, part of the reason he slid to 18, 19, whatever it was, is, there was some like viral video of him beating the shit out of some woman or something like that.
It was that an injury too, right? He was injured.
Oh, okay. So obviously, he probably slid a little bit, and that was a long time ago, and people can change and, get better and not make mistakes and stuff too, but that probably scared a couple teams off. So, maybe Quinnen's a little bit higher for him because of some of those reasons. So if I'm answering the question, hopefully I'm answering it suitably. You have a better idea of what Quinnen's market's going to be now. Now, like it would be kind of asinine for Quinnen to say, okay, well, I want 29 million, and the Jets to say, oh yeah, you definitely deserve Quinnen 29 million, because, Quinnen has had nowhere near the career that Aaron Donald had after his first 4 years. So, you that you kind of know where the market is now. Joe, what do you want to say?
No, you let the market dictate it, and then obviously you're going to start high. Like, he's not going to say, hey, he's not going to start off with, I want $25 million a year, and just make, okay, that's great. Like, then they're going to start, okay, we want 20, and then you're going to get to 25 eventually, or 22 and a half eventually. It's just one side starts low, one side starts high, and then after a while, you realize that you have to come to an agreement at some point, because at the end of the day, Kyle, mandatory like training camp, all that stuff, he's gonna start losing millions of dollars. So it's like, okay, we have to get a deal done. So it both hurts the team to drag it out because it's not a good look from the players. And then from the player side, it's like, listen, I'm going to legitimately lose a lot of money if I'm sitting out. So you have deadlines that make people become more reasonable as well. And he didn't know the market. So what if he said, okay, I want 25 million, and then Simmons got 26 and Lawrence got 27 or whatever, and he's sitting there like, shit. So you're always going to start high and let the market dictate. And obviously deadlines create action, or spur action. So it's kind of what happens, right?
And if I'm not mistaken, if you look at all those deals, it kind of went in descending order of where they were drafted. So Payne was drafted last out of all them, if I'm not mistaken. And then, wait, I could be wrong about this. Actually, I think Simmons got the deal before, but wait, and then
no,
Simmons
I think it was Payne, Lawrence. Was it Payne, Lawrence, Simmons?
No, I think Simmons got the deal before. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, it would make sense that Quinnen is kind of waiting it out, and he would be the last one to get it done, because I've said this so many times, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I think Jason from Over the Cap has really done a lot of like good work and really kind of showing the history behind like contract negotiations. And it's very evident, and there's a very strong correlation with how high you are drafted really indicates what your next deal is going to be. Like, obviously it's not a hard and fast rule. Like, oh, this guy was drafted 4th overall, he's going to get a monster deal. No, not if he sucked, but if he's good and he was drafted 4th overall, he's definitely going to get a mega deal, because he was drafted 4th overall for a reason. And this is part of the reason I knew that Daniel Jones was going to get a pretty big deal, because he was the 6th overall pick. And then he had a pretty decent year, despite, really not having many guys to throw the ball to. So Quinnen, 3rd overall pick, he's going to get a good contract, and it would make sense that he would wait out to see those other guys who were drafted behind him to see what they got first.
So we have a comment from It's Snoopy here, which I appreciate you, It's Snoopy, dropping in. Joe, why do we have Rodgers dragging a slide? And it kind of just reminded, like, the whole calf string thing. Kyle, did you see all that like media stuff that Diana Rossini puts out, oh, he's down with trainers, whatever, like trying to get all the retweets and all that shit. And then like later on, she tweets out that Alan Lazard is injured and with coaches and walked to the sideline, but like nothing to follow it up. Like clearly just like baiting people to go fucking crazy. So kind of shame on her a little bit with that one. But then like the New York Post, which is who still reads the New York Post or
my dad
downloads their shit. Okay, well, shame on him as well.
I'm gonna clip that and send it to him.
Good, fine. We'll meet in the parking lot. We can have words. So, but and then the New York Post is out there, and like all these podcasts are coming out, like, oh, buyer beware on Aaron Rodgers, and like Jets fans wearing bags over their head and shit because he strained his calf in May, and they were putting it in the back page of the paper that the Jets are a clown show and all this stuff. Like, what the fuck are we doing? So he strained his calf. Okay, it happens. He's going to be fine. Like now, if this happened in week 1 or a couple of days before the season, I would be concerned. But it's May. He hasn't been in OTAs. He hasn't been doing this shit a lot. So yeah, it might happen. He's 38, 39 years old. So shame on the media. Shame on Diana Rossini, the way she structured that tweet. Shame on
there's a reason why Aaron Rodgers told her to lose his number. Or well, he didn't tell her that directly, but when he went on the McAfee show, he relayed that message to her.
Yeah, and then you have like Lazard, and Lazard was like, why didn't nobody tweet out that I was fine and I got hit in the nuts, basically? Like, and people are like, oh, he's injured, like he's down. Like, oh my God, Alan Lazard's out for the year. Like that's how so shame on the media. The media is always like that. I hate big media like that. But why do we have a dragging a sled? I don't know if I saw him dragging a sled, but regardless,
yeah, I didn't see a video of that. I didn't even hear about that till you brought that up to me, so I didn't know.
Yeah, he should be able to do, obviously, I think a generic workout. It's not anything crazy. As now, obviously, there's a way to drag a sled where you're not going to get injured. Obviously, you want to not necessarily explode into dragging it, but you want to slowly build it up and then run. So it depends. They know what they're doing. They're fine. Hawk, what's up? Hawk the goat. Joey, what's up, Joey from Breakdown Tell Kyle. What's up, Murdog? I appreciate you being in here. Eagle says McDonald has to be the least talked about first selection I can remember since Brian Thomas, the old Jets fan. Eagle calling Jets fans old who remember Brian Thomas. I don't necessarily appreciate that, Eagle. But yeah, it's because like at the end of the day, McDonald's going to play 20% of the reps, and hopefully he's very productive in those reps. And based on my watching, I plan on doing a review again, hopefully tomorrow or the next day of McDonald. He was definitely miscast, and I think he has a lot of ability to add weight to his frame. He's obviously relatively new to football. I think you see him getting washed down and all that stuff, and obviously he's going to at 240 pounds playing 4i. But I think he has a capability to be a all-around player, but he has to develop quite a bit. I don't think his power is like bad for 240. Like, he actually held his ground sometimes. Like, damn, for 240, that's actually pretty good, even with bad technique. So he's naturally powerful. I'm excited for him in the future. I think again he could develop into a full-time player. Now, obviously, depending on how the Jets, formulate their roster the next couple of years, well, maybe he'll just play 20% of the reps for the rest of his life because that's how the Jets like their defensive linemen. But yeah, it's because he's not going to make a huge impact. Like, we know Sauce was going to start. We knew Garrett Wilson was going to start. JJ was definitely less talked about last year, but that was even before, the explosion of Huffin and things like that. So yeah, it's because he's going to play not a lot, right?
It's interesting when you say we knew Garrett Wilson was going to start. We didn't think that he would play as huge a portion of the snaps as he did early in the season. It was quite clear after week 1 that, okay, he should probably be playing more reps. And then obviously you saw in Cleveland week 2, he did get more. But, we with Garrett Wilson, we're thinking, I don't know what percentage we put it at, but we didn't think it would be as high as it was. But clearly he was the best receiving option for the Jets by far last year.
Well, at the worst, he was going to be the third receiver, right?
Yeah.
And obviously 11 personnel heavy team, like, or league, we expect him to play it obviously quite a bit. It definitely at the minimum, a lot more than McDonald, right? Like 50-60% of reps at the minimum. So,
and the whole thing about the McDonald chatter, it's not really, it doesn't really have so much to do with him as the fact that Aaron Rodgers is now the guy that you talk about on this team, right? Mm-hmm. That's it. Like, basically, when you trade what you traded to get him and the time that you acquired him and the fact that, he is who he is, he's the one sucking up all the chatter.
Yeah.
It's not an indictment on McDonald.
No. What's up, Ali? What's up, Anthony? Swolsey said way deeper than the Finns. Joe, I had a dream that Darnold and White were the starting QBs in the Super Bowl. That's not going to happen. But with that being said, I do think what is the chance that we play White at least once this year? Like, it's probably relatively high, right? At least one of these games,
He is two there.
concussed.
He is the 2 there. The thing about concussions is it is an injury that can repeat itself. If I'm not mistaken,
Sure.
I think Aaron Rodgers, the year he won the Super Bowl, the 2010 season, I think he had 2 concussions that year. I could be wrong about that, but I do think I'm right about that. So yeah, concussions are something that can be repetitive. And Tua, did he have 2? Was it 2 or 3 last year that he had?
I think it was 3.
So it was the one. It was probably one against that Bills game, which might have been week 2 last year. It was really early in the season, but he was allowed to come back in that game. Then he had the one against Green Bay late in the year, which shut him down for the rest of the year. But was there another one?
No, because wasn't the Bills one either after another one, or there was another one that occurred right after because there's people like, oh, he shouldn't be playing this week or whatever.
Well, I think,
then after we saw the picture of him literally like this on the ground, he's like,
oh, that was the Bengals.
Like, oh,
that was the Bengals game. So it was 3.
Okay,
it was 3.
Yeah.
So he probably had one against the Bills, but for whatever reason, it wasn't properly diagnosed or whatever, and he was let back into the game, finished the game, won the game. But then the Bengals one was the real bad one, and that. I was talking with our buddy Scott the other day, and Scott was telling me, because I remember I only watched the latter part of that Packers game at the end of the year, and Tua played really bad in that game. And Scott's like, well, what's interesting about that game is Tua was playing good early in the game, but it's after he took, he got hit outside the pocket, he was kind of trying to extend the play, and he got concussed again. Although I guess it wasn't diagnosed, but his head hit the ground hard. If you watch the replay, his head hits the ground hard. And Tua plays like shit after that. And it's just like, he's not seeing defenders drop back, right? Like, they're like, playing cover 2. He's not seeing them drop back, interception. It's like, kind of like, just didn't, I mean, maybe his mind wasn't right. So I think it was 3 concussions, probably. I don't know. But did Tua have injuries besides concussions that we can think of?
Wasn't he injured, or was that Bart? No. Wasn't Tua injured coming into the draft that year with something? I think he was. I think he was. And now that you say that, you remind me of Nick Saban talking about how, like one of Tua's good abilities is that he likes to extend plays almost to a fault, but the fact that he's a little bit on the smaller side, he shouldn't try to be doing that all the time. He said something along the lines of that. So I do think he had some type of injury coming into the draft. Did you see the picture of him on Twitter where people are saying he's thicker?
He does look thicker. Yeah, I saw Coleman commenting on it.
But it looks, I don't know if it's THICC thick or like THICK thick. He looked a little CK thick to me. He looked kind of chubby. It wasn't.
I agree. It was a far away shot, so it's a little tough to tell. But
like you want to see obviously like a skinny torso, like yoked up, but he looked just broad. Like he looked kind of fat.
If we're being honest, he's not like the most leanest dude in the world anyway. He's a.
I think he's kind of thick with a CK, not a CC there. So I don't like people said, oh, he looks good. I don't agree. Like, I didn't see any muscle definition or anything like that. So he might have been hitting the Twinkies, which is great. Hit the Twinkies. I don't care. Joe says, other than Rodgers, where do you see a major upgrade on the roster? Kyle, throw that to you. Because I'm not throwing it to myself because that'd be weird.
Major upgrade.
I don't think there is one, right? Like
I don't think there is one. I mean, you could argue not from this year. I mean, tight end from 2 years ago versus last year, even though they definitely underperformed to a certain extent. You would say you'd go in that direction, but I think
they sustained. I think they sustained their roster. You're hoping for more health. I think the offensive skill position and offensive line together around him is about an average-ish group, or even a little bit above. But you put a top 5 quarterback there, or hopefully top 5, top 6. That elevates it to hopefully a top 10 type offense, which I still think they might be able to make a move there. We'll see. And the defense last year was legitimately a top 5 defense, and I think they upgraded at safety. Like, regardless of whatever else they do, I'm taking Clark in any role over Joyner. So they upgraded that safety. Now I'm really, really hoping.
And the thing is too, Sauce Gardner versus Garrett Wilson, year 1 to year 2, players take such a huge jump. You're like, they could be. I mean, like, well, Garrett Wilson was not an All-Pro, nor was he Pro Bowl last year, but he could certainly be an All-Pro this year. And Sauce Gardner, it's crazy to think that, he definitely has room to improve. So, the Jets, I hate to sound cliche, but they're really trying to go for, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers model. I mean, like the Buccaneers were like what, 7-9-ish that year before that they had Jameis Winston as their starting quarterback, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. Then they go and get Tom Brady. I think they went 11-5, if I'm not mistaken, in the regular season. I think that was the last 16 game season. And then, they win 4 games in the playoffs. And I think that's what the Jets are hoping for. Like, hey, listen, we believe in our coaching overall. We believe in our roster top to bottom. Obviously, it helps when you draft an all-pro lineman in the first round, like the Buccaneers did. But that's what the Jets are hoping for. They're really hoping that Aaron Rodgers is going to, and listen, it's not crazy to think that he could have such a dramatic impact on the team. Let's, just think about there's been a lot of people talking about like how he's holding people accountable. And if you're a young, hungry player, and the Jets have a pretty young roster, these young guys are going to look up to Rodgers. And apparently he did a really good press conference the other day, and he was saying things like, hey, listen, ball security, I felt we were lacking a little bit of that in practice the other day. And then he starts rattling off like, this is a guy he's been in the league so long. He's played with so many guys. I forgot about Ryan Grant. I totally forgot about that guy. He brings his name up. He brings up Jordy Nelson, who, listen, some of these young guys might not even know who Jordy Nelson is. Some of them. Does Garrett Wilson know who Jordy Nelson is? He probably does, but he might not. Right? He brings his name up, and he starts talking about how these players, like, they set a standard in practice, like we're going to finish running all the way, finish through the end zone. And the NFL, as Joe Blewett likes to say, it's not a game of inches, it's a game of millimeters. Every little bit helps. So sometimes just that little effort, that little effort that Elijah Moore did not give last year, that could be the difference between winning and losing a game. When Robert Saleh says that, the NFL, these games are so close, they always come down to the final 2 minutes. So Aaron Rodgers, he's bringing that level of, stuff to the team. But then also it's the fact that the offense is going to be way better this year. And if it is, it's going to keep the defense off the field more. And the defense is probably going to play that much better because they're fresher. So,
especially an attack type defense. And it also helps the running game. It helps a lot. Now, with that being said, Kyle, I kind of want to throw it into or turn into this. I kind of mentioned it before, like passively, but do you think there's a splash move left for the Jets? Because, obviously it's many people say, the roster's done, but we added Quan late, we added Morgan Moses late, we added Dwayne Brown late, we added plenty of players late. So is there a splash move out there? Because they tried to go after Fletcher Cox. They tried to go after Calais Campbell, which, not necessarily a big splash, but still, they tried to go after Orlando Brown. They were at least somewhat close to Odell Beckham in negotiations. So 2 names that kind of get brought up, just to kind of aid you here. DeAndre Hopkins, who I knew made a top 5 list of quarterbacks who he'd like to play with, and Aaron Rodgers wasn't on there. Whatever, it is what it is. I'm sure he would like to get traded here over the Rams or something like that, because he doesn't necessarily have to say where he goes. Obviously the Rams wouldn't trade for him, just kind of a bad example. And then Kevin Byard is a guy who, talk about needing a free safety. You're talking about a really good free safety who's not reporting to OTAs now. He's owed $12, $13 million. I think the Jets have about 18 right now. You cut guys like Ashton Davis, $2 million. You cut guys like Denzel Mims-ish, $2 million. You cut guys like, maybe you trade Bryce Hall, that's $2 million. So you can easily kind of make up that money. People say, oh, well, Q, what are you going to do with him? His contract doesn't necessarily affect this year's cap. It actually might help the cap. They can maneuver it in different ways based on what I've heard. So is there a splash move? Because if you're going for it, and which the Jets obviously are, and like Joe's kind of mentioning here, like we didn't make major upgrades to the roster. Is it time to make a major upgrade to the roster? Look at DeAndre Hopkins has 2 years left on his contract. He's making, whatever the money is, it's somewhat manageable for the next 2 years for DeAndre. Do you feel like they should go in, or because where they're at right now, like are they almost like not like half going in, but you know what I mean? Like are they really doing everything they possibly can at this point? And to me, I don't think they are. So I think there may be a splash move.
I think that there's a decent chance of it. And I think you laid out some really great reasons why we could think that. Number one, I mean, if they signed Orlando Brown, I can't remember the exact numbers that he got from the Bengals.
16-ish million.
Yeah, which is obviously a lot of fully guaranteed money. They would have had to pony up a lot of money for that. So, the fact that they're willing to be aggressive and they said, okay, well, we can afford to spend this money in this manner makes me think that maybe they would. Could it be DeAndre? It seems to be very unlikely that it'd be someone like Devontae Adams, but I mean, there are some rumblings about it. And listen, if I'm Devontae, I know he kind of defended himself, say, oh, well, my comments were taken out of context. But if you're Devontae, do you want Jimmy Garoppolo throwing you the ball? Yeah, you liked, he wanted to go to the Raiders because I think it was like his childhood team or whatever. But
that Carr he played.
Part of the huge reason why you went there is Carr. He's no longer there, but now you got, you had Josh McDaniels, but Josh McDaniels is kind of a control freak. That's part of the reason he got run out of Denver. I don't think that really, changed just because he had many years in between head coaching stints. So I think it's possible. I just think it would be too hard to get him. Although it's not crazy to think. I mean, like, hey, listen, if Aaron Rodgers had a true, sincere wish list, and we know he did, and we know the Jets signed some of those guys, you'd have to figure that Devontae would be near the top of it. It's just with the money and how much you have to trade to give up to get him, it just seems unrealistic. Whereas DeAndre, it does seem a little bit more realistic. In terms of the Byard scenario that you mentioned, I would say that there's probably significantly less than a 5% chance that would be the direction that the Jets would want to go.
In a vacuum, would you rather, because with Byard, like DeAndre Hopkins may be a better player than Byard, like 1-for-1 at this point. DeAndre Hopkins is still very good. People are saying he's a wash. He was a stud last year when he was healthy, or when he was actually playing. But is DeAndre Hopkins, because you have to also consider with DeAndre Hopkins, you're getting rid of Corey Davis. So you're getting rid of a decent player to add a very good player, where Byard, we have nothing there. So in a vacuum, which one would you rather add? Obviously, this is, you're going to say price, all this stuff in a vacuum, similar price, 4th round pick, whatever it may be.
I still would go with DeAndre. What about you?
Yeah, to me, like, I kind of laid it out like the way, like, okay, you have to cut Corey Davis, and it's just about maximizing Aaron Rodgers. Like, at that point, who do you cover? Like, that's just absolutely ridiculous. But I can make a strong case for Byard, because we have nothing at free safety. Like, we have nothing there. Now, again, Cody Adams could be a good player, but is he? We can't guarantee that after, a couple good preseason showings and what, two or three games at the end, maybe 2, like the Seahawks and the Dolphins game, right? So I can make an argument for that. Either way, I would be obviously thrilled with that. But since Orlando Brown, what they signed, or even Orlando Brown, or let's just say OBJ, because a little bit later, since that point, we signed Quentin Jefferson for $2-3 million, McGovern for like 1.2, Al Woods for about $3 million. So they're still about $10 million or so they're about to give to Odell. So where is that coming from? So I think it's possible. I definitely think it's possible. I would love to see one of those guys added to the Jets, because you add DeAndre Hopkins to this receiving group, you're talking about a top 5 unit, at least top 10. Right now, they're not there. That would be ridiculous. And you add Byard to the safety room, like, holy shit, dude, that secondary is ridiculous. So
yeah, I just think like there was rumors last year that Bates was available. The Jets seemed to have no interest in that, even though he was a complete free agent this year. You didn't have to give up anything to get him. I didn't hear any reports that the Jets were even put in a bid for him. So I don't know. I don't want to say the Jets don't value safety. I'm just saying it's just, clearly they value, defensive line rotation more than that and stuff. And they feel like, with their corners and stuff, that their secondary is good enough. I just, getting the contract and giving up the draft pick to get Byard, I just don't think that's the direction they want to go in. But I do think that the Jets are desperate. I think Woody's desperate. I think Salah's desperate. I think Joe Douglas is desperate.
I'm desperate. Kyle, I'm desperate.
Jets fans are desperate, man. We're tired of getting made fun of every year, man.
Yeah. So let's see. Hawk says Dwayne Brown is going to beat Becton for left tackle. Then it's time to see if Becton is mature or not. I don't think he's going to be mature. I think he's going to play right tackle because he has to for his future contract. But I think he's going to make us think about it, which is not ideal. I don't think the coaching staff is not loving him. There's no way they like him. Any free safety still available you'd like, Hawk? I'm not answering for Hawk. John Johnson's still out there. Who's a guy who played some free safety. I know he had a little bit of a down year last year, but he was pretty solid with the what is it called? The Rams. Even though that one play, I think it was him when I was watching that one play of Joyner, and it was a Super Bowl, and like him and Joyner were barely running to a play. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you're not running hard in the Super Bowl. Like, when are you going to run then? Like, Jesus, man. But GTA V-Man read somewhere Eccles was doing 83 miles per hour in a crash cam. I saw that too. Like, he's going 83 because the headline of the article said like at an absurd rate of speed. I saw 83. I was like, is that really absurd? Like, I don't know. It's not very absurd, but
I mean, I guess it would. And Joe, you're a guy who pulls people over, but I guess it would depend where he's doing 83. I mean, if it's on the highway, it's obviously not absurd.
No, not really. I've seen that before, but nonetheless, Hawk Becton is all talk, no action so far. It seems like he wants to be praised for coming into camp in shape, which is a normal thing you're supposed to do. Yeah, no, you give him credit, and it's kind of what I said before, Hulk. It's great that he lost 50 pounds, but he should have never had to lose 50 pounds, right? So you are congratulating him for something he should have done anyway. Still give him some kudos because he looks like an absolute stud. Like he looks like he could play tight end. If he was at what 360, 370 ish during the combine. He ran a 4 or a 5.1. What is he running now at 340? Probably a 4.9. He looks like he run a 4.9 right now. So it's whatever. They're on the way to Super Bowl. It sounds like the beginning of a horrible nightmare. Damn. Let's see. Of course, Tristan Wirfs and CeeDee Lamb were the obvious picks over Becton. I'm not gonna. Maybe Wirfs. I think you can argue that. I'm not gonna agree that CeeDee Lamb was the obvious pick over Becton at that point, right? Like we needed a tackle pretty badly, and it was a studly tackle class. I don't think Becton was a bad pick. Now, if you could bring the Jets back in time and not even give them the full context of the injuries and say, this is what he's doing on social media. He's going to come into camp overweight and all that stuff. Would they have probably made a different pick? Yeah, most likely. But at the time, Becton had plenty of good film at Louisville. It's not like he was undeserving of the spot, but obviously hasn't worked out very well. So yeah, maybe Wirfs, if you liked Wirfs better than Becton, which I don't know if I did or not. But I'm not going to say Lamb was the pick.
You definitely had Andrew Thomas as your fourth tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Wills was definitely your number one.
For sure. I don't know about 2 and 3.
2 and 3. I don't know. You had one list that was like your straight up big board, like if you were GM for all 32 teams, and then I think you had one that was Jet centric, and you might have had those two flip flopped on the Jet centric one, if I'm not mistaken.
I might have had Becton above him, but for the Jets, Wirfs more because he moved better. I think
that's what it was. I think
yeah. So. Yeah. If the Niners or the late first round team offers us their first, bro, Kyle, yes, you're doing it for a first round pick tomorrow. Of course, you're doing that for Becton right now. Now it's a very bad spot. It's a hard question to answer because we're in May and we need a starting tackle, so it'd be very hard to trade Becton. But if a team calls you and offers a second right now, you're doing it.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But
when are you doing? At what point are you saying no? I'm not taking that for Becton at this point.
At first, you absolutely have to. A second, you also you still highly have to consider that. I mean, listen, dude, you traded a 3 and got back a 2 for Elijah Moore, who, as much as he was disappointment here, I mean, at least the guy played. Becton hasn't played in 2 years, so. I think you'd have to.
Oh, sorry. Dwayne Brown is a whole ass man. All right. Dude played with a torn shoulder all year. There is no way I'm starting Becton, who hasn't played football in 2 years over a guy. It's not even necessarily that. It's looking at that and then also Becton versus all the other guys we talked about before, So zero chance Becton can get the second contract here. Yeah, I really doubt it. Now you can make the point of, okay, well, good tackles don't grow on trees, but I think he's rubbed them in a bad way, really. He did not rub them in a good way. So
I mean, dude, go ahead. I think the Jets in an ideal world would like to move on, but if he just goes and tears it up this year, you're not going to get rid of him.
It depends. It depends on. I don't know the tackle class right now. I don't know, not the class, the free agency. So if there's a tackle out there in free agency, do they go after their option 1, 2, 3? If they don't land him, then they go after Becton. I don't think he's going to be their primary option next year.
Joe, the guys that hit free agency, I mean, like
Orlando Brown this year hit free agency.
Yeah, who had a down year. He had a big down year.
I'm taking him over Becton, even if Becton.
And Orlando Brown was the 3rd round pick too. He wasn't the 11th overall pick.
Yeah. Let's see. Free agent, offensive tackles 2024. Let's see who's on that list. And obviously we know that a lot of these guys are going to get signed, right? So let's
think of another tackle that got a huge contract a couple years ago, Trent Brown. Right? Trent Brown's another guy who, I mean, I guess he had some okay years in San Fran, but he was allowed to walk in free agency. Went to the Patriots, did pretty well, but lots of linemen do well with the Patriots. You had Dante Scarnecchia there for a long time, great offensive line coach. And then he goes elsewhere to the Raiders, and he has a really, really, really not great season with the Raiders, or 2 seasons, whatever it was.
Tackle free agency is pretty rough.
If Becton tears it up this year, I don't care what stupid ass tweets he put out there. I don't care that he's been out of shape before. Listen, okay, it sucks he got out of shape and ate himself. I mean, like, listen, the guy was probably super depressed. I basically can't play 2 football seasons straight. He's worried about making his next contract and providing for future generations of his family. And his mom is a soul food, chef or whatever. It's natural to gain a lot of weight. I mean, just look how big his family is. But can we
400 pounds of weight? 400
now
pounds of
you're
weight.
making the whole big deal, and it's legit. And it's a good point by you. He shouldn't have had to be in a position to lose 50 pounds anyway. But the fact that he did, though, is still impressive, because some guys wouldn't. Some guys, like, I'm trying to think of an example of a guy who just, couldn't lose weight, but whatever. But the fact of the matter is he did it. So it shows he does have some level of motivation there.
In a contract year. So what happens if you pay him? Is he going to get fat again? Is he going to get injured again? Like, there's so many questions you have to ask yourself about signing Becton.
At the very least, he gets franchised. I'm saying if he tears it up this year, he's going to get franchised. There's no way they're allowing him to walk.
Yeah, I don't see him being the long-term guy. Maybe he is. I just don't see it. Radovan, is Brown really going to be he tore his rotator cuff in like August last year, so he played through it all year. So yeah, it's going to be fine. Did we hear about him getting surgery? Is it a thing that he naturally heals? I'm not sure.
Well, didn't you? Well, no, it wasn't your rotator cuff. What part of your shoulder did you mess up?
I tore my labrum.
Okay.
That sucked.
And you didn't.
That was the gym's
surgery,
fault. Right? That was the gym's fault. I was doing the pec deck machine. I put the weights in so you do your rear delts, and I was going to do the rear delts, and I didn't realize the weight pin caught the pins behind the weights behind it too. So I thought I was lifting a certain weight, and just added another 140 pounds to it. So I was like, and I felt something. I was like, okay, that's a little weird, and I kind of went slow for the rest of the day. The next day, I came to the bench, and as soon as I went down, I felt it just fucking shooting pain in my shoulder. So I ripped it. That sucked. But it is what it is. I've never broken anything, but I've dislocated some stuff, and I ripped that. I ripped my groin once, which that was not fun either. Okay, let's go. Becton thinking left tackles get paid more than right tackles. It's minimal. Like Lane Johnston's a really good right tackle. You get the bag at any position on the offensive line if you're great. Obviously tackles more so than guards and centers, but you know what I'm saying.
That whole discussion a couple of years ago, I think it was it Vaughn? They were talking to some edge rusher, and I think it was somebody like Vaughn who was saying that the whole left tackle, right tackle thing. The thing is a lot of defensive coordinators nowadays, they want to move some of these edge rushers around, and if they notice that you have a weakness anywhere along the offensive line, they're just going to move in. I mean, certain guys, I think Dwight Freeney was always a right side defensive end guy who always strictly rushed against left tackles. But nowadays, they move them around a bit more. Of course, there are guys like Carl Lawson's another guy who predominantly plays on the right side of the defensive line going against the left tackle. So some guys definitely do have their preferences and stuff. They turn better in one direction for whatever reason, or they strike better with this inside hand better than that one. So, people have their preferences, but I think the good defensive coordinators really like to use their good edge rushers and expose opposing teams' weaknesses. So if you think about it like that, and it certainly seems like there's more of that in the NFL nowadays than there was 10, 20, 30 years ago, there's more of a premium on a right tackle than there used to be. So even though it's not protecting the blind spot for most quarterbacks, protecting the quarterback period is important.
You're still getting 20 million plus. Like it's very minimal of a difference if you're a stud right tackle. Hawk says, is there a scenario where they put McGovern at right guard and play AVT at right tackle? To me, it would depend on obviously injuries. At this point, you're assuming Becton went down at right tackle, right? Now, I would assume, at least in my mind, they're going to try guys out like Billy Turner, like Max Mitchell, and maybe even Carter Warren before they have to move back AVT to right tackle. But if they put those guys in and they suck ass, then yeah, I could see that. I could see that happening. AVT being the emergency tackle. But I think a lot would have to go wrong in terms of injuries and or combine that with bad play from some of the guys like Mitchell, who again he was not good last year. He was good. He was okay relative to expectations, but not a guy you want to start. But who's to say that he can't take a step up and be, an okay player at right tackle. So I think they'll try some other guys out first.
Question, Joe. So you've talked to Nania more recently than I have. And I think that he, if I'm not mistaken, not last week, but the week before, you had him and Robbie on for a stream. I know his co-host, Ben, was one of these guys banging the drum to play AVT at tackle. I think Michael's kind of indifferent towards that idea. I think he would be okay with it, but doesn't necessarily want it. Is that true? Playing AVT at tackle, Michael?
Yeah, I think he's more guard. Like he wants him more at guard, but I do sense indifference too. But I don't want to put words in his mouth. That was 2 weeks ago, and I kind of forget or whatever. But
I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouths either. But this is something that anyone who wants to see AVT at tackle, I think it's mostly just because, hey, listen, he's done it before. He stepped in and did fine last year. Fine. I'm just gonna say he did fine. AVT was not great as a tackle last year. Like, put on the tape of that Steelers game. He was fine. He was not great. And I know Alex Highsmith had a pretty good year last year, but Alex Highsmith definitely had a couple wins against AVT last year for sure. So I have no interest in doing that. Joe, you've been reviewing some of his tape recently, and you were just talking about how good he was early in the season last year prior to that injury. That's what he can be as a guard. As a tackle, I think he's kind of like, middle of the road at best, I think.
Yeah, I think he could be solid, and I think even with more time, maybe he sniffs a Pro Bowl or two at tackle, maybe. But I legitimately think he could be a top 5 guard in the league. Like,
yeah. So I really disagree with the people that are in favor of that.
It would be an emergency. It would be an emergency thing where they really were injured there or sucking, and then he has that flexibility. Now I would play. I think McGovern's. Let's assume that Tippman's the starting tackle or the starting center. He's my. Now he hasn't played guard in a few years, but I definitely let him play some guard. In training camp and all that stuff. And if he does perform at least somewhat close to the level that he plays at center, I think he should be the primary backup at guard. I wouldn't have a problem with that with McGovern, but yeah, I think a lot of things have to go wrong at that point. And Hawks in his jersey, which is awesome. Not a lot of people with the Vera Tucker jerseys. I think I don't know if do I just go to one of these like websites where I get a $40 Aaron Rodgers jersey, or do I just get the nameplate plate replaced by an embroiderer or whatever? I don't know. I'm deciding.
That would probably be cheaper, I think.
Like $20, but at that point it's $20. So I just get another one. Like I don't know. Because
you are Mr. Baller.
Jerseys are like 35, 40. No, I'm not. It's my wife. My wife assists me in balling, but we do decently well. So we have a super chat, which will make pull up from Nose Kills. So always throw super chats. Appreciate you, Nose Kills. Flights, check tickets, check third time in U.S. first, and an NFL game. Pats at Jets week 3 pumped. What are you expecting from DNs Jermaine Johnson and Roll? That's awesome, Nose Kills. I don't know if you have a plan on a tailgate or anything like that, but if you don't, reach out. We're always in J1. You can just stop by and grab a beer or two, and then go wherever tailgate you're going to. But definitely an open invitation because you support the channel quite often. But Kyle, and that's awesome.
Nose Kills, I apologize. I missed one of your super chats recently. I think it was 2 weeks ago. I would be pulling up these super chats quicker. I am not logged into StreamYard this week. That is part of the reason why I haven't been doing that this week. And I'm curious, Nose Kills, what country are you from? And to answer the question about Jermaine Johnson and McDonald, what am I expecting? I'm expecting a decent jump for Johnson. I'm not expecting he's going to reach Pro Bowl level or anything like that this year. I think that
a jump in terms of what though, play or like his level of play or the snaps, because I would have to obviously, Kyle, you know what it is. Like you watch thousands of snaps and stuff. You're like, oh, well, what do you think about, Jermaine Johnson's weaknesses last year? I'm like, I kind of forget, but is he ever going to play on third down? Unless it's a rush, unless it's a run situation.
I hate to say it, but he's a bust if he doesn't.
I'm talking about this year. Is he going to play over McDonald? Is he going to play over Huff? Is he going to play over Carl Lawson? Is he even going to play over JFM sometimes on the outside? So when is he going to be in there to rush the quarterback? Obviously, minus some plays where it's maybe 50-50 run to pass percentage.
It's a great question. I would say he's going to have to earn that. I don't think that
he does.
Early in the season, I don't think the Jets want to go in that. But here's the thing about the NFL. It's such a long, grueling season, so many injuries. I think that, listen, Huff has missed a decent amount of games in his tenure with the Jets. McDonald, I don't know if he was ever banged up at all, but God forbid, knock on wood, he doesn't get banged up. If one of those guys goes out a game or two and Jermaine Johnson gets his chance and he really flashes, they might say, hey, listen, this is the 26th overall pick. We got to get this guy in a little bit more. It's all about, what have you done for me lately? And, earn your reps. A lot of times with running backs, it's like, oh, let's ride the hot hand. Pass rushing is kind of similar in that regard. So at the beginning of the season, I don't anticipate him playing third down a lot, but he could earn his way there. And I think the Jets kind of realize at this point, and I know that they like the kid, obviously. But I think that they also realized he was a little bit raw when they drafted him, but thinking that they could develop him. But yeah, to your point, Joe, I would definitely have either Huff or McDonald on third down rushing, and even Lawson for that matter too.
JFM, if in a rush situation, I would prefer JFM to be more to the inside, but
dude, I'll be honest with you, Joe. If we're talking straight up as an edge rusher,
Kyle, have you not been honest the entire show though? Is that the question? So are you just being honest now?
No, I've been honest the whole time, even though some people might think I was making up bullshit with that story.
You had to specifically point out you're going to be honest for the statement. So
I guess that's one of my tics that I say very often.
No, a lot of people do that, but like I've been in interviews where they'll be like, so you weren't honest the entire time, now you're being honest. So it's just things that I think. But continue. I'm sorry.
To be honest, Joe, if I
can I remove you out of the
wide nine?
No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
If you're talking like, okay, it's third down. Everybody in the world knows they're passing, right? They're not going to run a draw on third down.
Mm-hmm.
I want as my edge rusher Jermaine Johnson over John Franklin Myers, and I like John Franklin Myers. I actually think last season was his best season yet, including over his 2021 season that was really good. Or was it what was his best season before? Like he had a little bit of a down year in 2021, I think was a little, I think 2021 was a down year for him a little bit, if I'm not mistaken. I thought 2022 was his best year, even though you kind of disagreed with me about that. Sorry, go ahead.
He balled out. No, that was my fault too. He balled out in 2020. And then 2021, he started off hot, got paid right by the Falcons game, like week 4 or 5, and then he disappeared for the rest of the. Like he didn't disappear, but obviously not worth $14 or $15 million. But
he was playing at edge a lot that season, more so than last year.
Which I'm hoping, and it's one of the only ways that this move makes sense for McDonald's if they're planning on kicking JFM inside. Because to me, having one of let's say Huffin or McDonald, because I think they're going to kind of play a similar role. One of those guys. With Lawson, JFM and Q is the best rush group we have, in my opinion. So I hope they play more inside now.
Can I just say this about JJ? I don't know that he's ever going to be a guy who can win with a variety of moves, but what I kind of just want to see more from him is I know the dude is quick. Like look at his 10-yard split, look at his 40-yard dash. Those are good times. I think his jumps were pretty good. He's explosive. Well, yeah. So maybe if he never wins with I don't think he's ever going to be a great bender. I just don't think that's kind of like McDonald's a good bender. I don't think Johnson's ever going to have that. But if he can ever just, be a little bit more like Carl Lawson, just win with speed to power more. Like, I just want to see him use more of that and be more effective.
Decisive.
And if he's more decisive, like, listen, you don't need to think a lot. Just use your God-given talents, Jermaine Johnson, run through this guy. That's what we need to see more of this year, I think. Stop the dancing.
I want to run through those 3 topics before we get to the chat. We have about a half an hour left. The Ty Johnson thing. Did you think anything about the Ty Johnson thing, where him coming out and saying the Jets?
Right?
Well, he heard something. He said that the Jets coaching staff told him to get surgery. But again, did they tell him, hey, you have to get surgery for the Jets, or did they recommend surgery for him? Because I think he could have played through it, but maybe they were like, hey, based on what we think, we probably should get it. But the way it was laid out, again, his side, we didn't get the Jets side, we didn't get the truth. So did the Jets tell him to get it, or did they recommend it? And then obviously he was cut. But Kyle, at the time he signed, before he was signed, we were saying we're the guys who we both agreed draft the running back in rounds 4 through 7 every single year because there's studly ones all over the place in later rounds in the draft. And once he signed, we're kind of like, I'd rather take the shot on the guy in the 4th or 5th, 6th round, obviously to get Izzy in the 5th. So we're happy with that. But now, maybe they wouldn't have drafted Izzy if Ty was on the roster, but I don't agree with that. So I think he's going to be off the team regardless of that. Now, again, was it mandatory or did they recommend it? Because you can ask guys, hey, I think this is what you should do. I'm not necessarily saying you have to get it.
Can a team mandate somebody get a surgery? I don't think they can do that. So I don't think they did that. They probably just recommended it. And
okay. So we'll run through that. Emergency third quarterback. Did you see that? So basically, it's not a third quarterback who doesn't count for your roster. He still has to count for your 53-man roster. It's just on game day. What is it? It's 46 players or 47 players active, and that third quarterback does not count against those active players. So you have to have him on your 53, but he doesn't count against the players who are active, 46 or 47, whatever it is. So I think it's a fine rule.
I think so.
I think it's a fine rule, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be a thing where a bunch of teams are going to be carrying 3 quarterbacks now necessarily. Now maybe a team like the 49ers should, but
yeah, I don't think so either. I think if you're a team that like, you have a guy like Tom Brady who basically never gets hurt, then, you're just going to run with your 2 quarterbacks and be fine with it. But, if you're a team like the Raiders who has a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, who's your primary starter, who, gets banged up all the time, then yeah, you probably should have 3. So I don't really think it will affect roster management too much. I think if you're a GM, you kind of just, be aware of who you got back there and, if they're made of glass or not, you act accordingly. But I kind of like the rule because it just kind of sucked watching that conference championship game. It's like you knew that the 49ers had basically no shot to come back in that game. So it just sucks.
Niners, I'm interrupting you a lot. Maybe someone thought the Niners. I usually like them, like what they're about, but they bitch so much about that Eagles game. Like I'm really rooting against the Niners.
What do you mean they bitch? Do you talk about the fans or what?
The players. The players like, oh, if we can get injured, we would.
Which players were complaining? I didn't see this.
But it was a while ago. It was during the Super Bowl. It's even been in recent weeks and like that of players just basically bitching about the injuries and they shouldn't have lost that game and all that. I don't have names off the top of my head, but it was quite a few players and Eagles players were like, dude, shut the fuck up. You lost. It is what it is. So the Niners are kind of pissing me off with their bitching about that conference championship game. But unless you have any other thoughts, go ahead.
I mean, it's not like their defense, like their great all-star defense. It's not like they played a tremendous game either. I mean, the Eagles put up how many points in that game? Was it like 30 or something like that?
30 or 40, yeah, something like that.
Granted, they probably got a couple good field positions because of like turnovers and whatnot, but I don't know. I understand being pissed about the game because of the quarterback situation, but don't act like you would have won regardless.
Yeah, stop
do you remember the whole thing that happened with Bosa? Joey Bosa was walking into the stadium, and the Eagles fans were heckling him.
Yeah,
did you see that?
Yeah, I did. Kyle, before we move to the rest of the chat, I don't think we talked, and we're not going to go through win losses. Maybe we'll do that later on in the offseason, but I don't think we ever brought it up. Any quick overarching thoughts about
the schedule?
About the Jets schedule this year? I don't think we mentioned anything about it.
Yeah, so I think the schedule came out right around the time you did your previous stream with Michael and Robbie. I was quite happy to see the schedule. I'm sure that you were too. You said that you're going to at least like 9 games or something like that?
So the only game I know I already have, I would have a list in my phone of days I need off, hours need covered, and all that stuff. I'm making it to every single home game, but the Commanders one on Christmas Eve. I'm not going to be letting off Christmas Eve. I'm a pawn, in my department. I can't get off on Christmas Eve. It's not going to happen. So I'm going to miss that one.
But you're not working nights anymore, though, right?
No, day shift. But I'm not. I'm going to miss that one. I'm not going to be at the stadium for that. I'm going to the Giants game, which is technically an away game.
I'll be there.
So the Jets play 9 home games, right? So I'm making 8. The Giants game, which is 9, and the Cowboys game, which is 10, and I'll make all the Jets. They're gonna have 3 playoff games. We're gonna have a bye week 1. So it's 13 games. I'm gonna make this year, Kyle. So
I really want to go to the Cowboys game. I've been basically knowing that they were gonna play the Cowboys for a couple of years now. In Jerry world, I really wanted to go there for a couple of years, but I don't know. I guess being that the Jets are playing more primetime games and more important games this year, it's right at the beginning of the season. I know I'm going week 1. And then I'm going week 4, Sunday Night Football. I'm definitely going to the Giants game week 8. I definitely, if the Jets make the playoffs, especially depending really where it is. But even
depending
if it's an away game,
you're just going.
There's a strong likelihood that even if it's in like, let's say it's out in LA against the Chargers, I'll probably even go. So I don't know. As much as I want to go to Jerry World,
you're driving.
Yeah, well, good point. But some flights are longer than others, and some are more expensive than others. But yeah, point noted. Listen, I mean, driving. I mean, like let's say that they were playing. How long is the drive to Cleveland? Granted, the fact that they would play in
Uh,
Cleveland is not very likely.
Well, we drove through Cleveland to get to Indy. Indy was about 10.5 hours. I think Cleveland's probably about 7 or 8. Give or
So I
take.
don't know. Would I
Yes.
fly? I guess I probably would fly, truthfully.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the schedule's pretty cool. I guess first Black Friday game ever. That's pretty cool. So it's 6 primetime games if you include Black Friday,
Black Friday.
5 if you don't. My
Yeah.
I called him the day the schedule was leaking. And I was like, "Did you see the news?" And he's like, "No." And I was like, "Well, Sunday Night Football week 4." He was really excited for that. So that's
It's
going
a
to be a
tough
cool
stretch. That those first couple of weeks, I'm hoping for 4-2, but 3-3 would be fine. You know, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Bills, all these the Cowboys. So you have to get at least 3-3 out of that. Hopefully, the end of the year has quite a few cupcakes on the schedule. You know, you don't want to assume anything.
We said the same thing last year.
Yeah, but we didn't have Aaron Rodgers. Different. So I looking at it, I think
No, we had Mike White. Come on, man.
I want to be
Mike fucking White.
conservative. I'll be conservative. I think I'm looking at an 11-6 team. I would say 11 or 12. I'm not going to say 11 or 10, but I would say 11 or 12 wins based on, again, there's a lot of time to go. We can get DeAndre Hopkins. We can get Kevin Byard. You know, you could see Aaron Rodgers just completely lose his calf, bit by a wolf, whatever it is, that these media people are putting out there. So I think that's the range. I'm excited. I wish that the bye week is a little bit later. It's week 7. I think it is what it is. To me, I didn't want week 1 to be the Giants. I didn't. I want it to be a Jets home game. I want Rodgers running out of the tunnel in MetLife, so I was happy about that. But past that, I wanted some of the better teams to be later on in the year to get us, so we can gel and all that stuff. And seeing the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Cowboys all initially, we don't get that time to gel now. You do make note of the lack of travel. How we played, it seemed like every single game last year, Kyle, we were playing teams off their bye week. We don't play any teams off their bye week. We got good rest. So I'm happy about it generally. I just wish some of the teams that were better were later, but it is what it is, right? So.
Yeah, you almost kind of think sometimes, especially later too, you want to be, playing those good team at the end of this. The whole point you made about gelling is a very good point. At the end of the day, a loss is a loss, whether it's in the beginning of the season or at the end of the season. And when they're more gelled, as you said, you're more likely to beat the Eagles when they're more gelled and knowing how to play with each other. That obviously is a good point. But I think the other point too is as you're gearing for the playoffs, playing that good competition late in the season, take, for example, the Giants' first Super Bowl run. Back in, not their very first, but the first one with Eli, 2007, right? Their final game of the season was the undefeated Patriots, right? What way to gear up for the playoffs than to play the undefeated New England Patriots? So I think there's something you want to kind of play the good competition at the very end of the season too, to kind of gear you for, okay, we're playing a playoff caliber team right before the playoffs start, because playoffs, it's one and done, man. If you have a bad game, doesn't matter. You're done for the rest of the year. So.
And we have to see about injuries and all that stuff. We can bring all that stuff up. But to me, in general, in the vacuum, the Jets are going to be a better team in week 14 than they're going to be week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. So we'll keep moving on. Momo says, when does the rising cost of players ever stop? It doesn't. When the TV contracts keep going up. And
the NFL keeps becoming a more and more popular sport. So I guess if ever... Well, it's also there's also inflation too. They keep inflating the money supply. So, listen, $100 million contract nowadays versus 30 years ago. I mean, the value of the dollar was way more 30 years ago. So that's part of it. But at the same time, the league is getting immensely more popular. And I think gambling and stuff has a lot to do with that. The fact that it's on, these streaming services and stuff, the fact that there's YouTube and players can go and look at all these YouTube highlights, and now people have access to all 22 film. There's so many reasons why the sport is more popular. And a lot of it's just changing the rules and stuff too, making it more of a scoring league. The average fan likes high scoring games more than a defensive battle too. So a lot of that stuff was intentional, but for all these reasons, the league is more popular.
Somebody was mentioning us responding to chat slow, and Steven had our back and said they do just very slowly. I appreciate you having our back.
I saw that too. Thanks, Steven.
Murdoch says, you think Becton saw happened with Elijah Moore? Good young wide receiver complains while team is winning, gets traded. Now the team and fan make his euphoric over potential with Rodgers. Now Becton is being up there. Again, it's just a childish thing. Just you can make your thoughts known in meeting rooms to the coaches, whatever it may be. Salah said, go out and win it. It just putting it out for quotes and whatever is just, it's never going to help you. It just does not help you. So we're gonna keep moving on.
I was trying to think out loud just as I was reading that, and I kind of don't agree with what I'm about to say, but even this, I feel like it would be better if he did it this way than putting out a stupid tweet. I remember when the Bills drafted Aaron Maben, my brother was telling me a story that Aaron Maben was getting his ass kicked in training camp by the Bills offensive line, Eric Wood. And Eric Wood, who's a very nice, humble guy, actually was saying, give me some of that fucking money. Like, cause Maben was like what, the 11th overall pick, something like that, in the 10th, 9th, 11th overall pick, something, maybe 9, can't remember, but he was right around top 10. Give me some of that fucking money. And it's like, dude, you're like calling a guy out in training camp practice. Like, that's pretty badass. Like, let's say Becton was just dominating in training camp. And then he said, I'm a fucking left tackle. And you're going to fucking know that. Like, that would even be a better way to get that off your chest than to tweet about it. But not that I even agree with that, because like, what's Dwayne Brown going to say? Like, he's over there. He might think like, oh, well, Mekhi just made a great fucking play. Like, I respect that. It's so much better than tweeting it out. I don't know.
Yeah. Art says not defending his actions, but in that Simmons video, he was allegedly defending helping his sister. Just adding context.
Appreciate the context.
I'll be completely transparent. I did not even really think about, or I didn't hear about a video of him hitting anybody or anything like that.
They played it on draft night. That's the only reason I know about it.
Oh, really? Yeah. The only reason I thought he dropped was because of the injury. I didn't know anything about that. But obviously, if that was the case, then defend your sister, right? So, New York Post is and mainstream media. You're completely right, Steven. Gentlemen, injury, enjoy the stream. I appreciate that. Let's see, Joe, or we meet Q and Nikki in the middle, 4 years. I think that's probably what the Jets are looking at. And again, he might be arguing 3 years for more, or 3 years or 4 years for more money. Like, I'll take 3 years at 24.5 or 25 or 24.5 or 25. But if you want me to be here for 4 or 5 years, maybe it's a little bit more. That's what I think it is. We have to talk about this man. Ariza, he was proven innocent. Yeah, I know they worked him out. I know people are saying, oh, well, he still had sex with a minor or whatever. I don't know the whole story with him. If you're 21 at a party having sex with a 17-year-old, it gets weird with state laws and statutes and all this stuff with what age is okay to have sex with, whatever. Is 21 to 17 the craziest thing I've ever seen? It's not. So is that what people are talking about with a minor? Then okay, it's a little bit more understandable. I'm not condoning any of that shit.
Did he even know her age?
Was it a 13-year-old? Yeah, if you're at a college party and there's a 17-year-old, is she gonna say, "Hey, I'm 17," or is she just gonna talk to you and hook up? Like, it's not like, "Hey, sign this legal document, give me your license, registration, and proof of insurance, and to confirm your information." So
it's like
don't know.
It's like that South Park episode where the PC principal and like the guys in the fraternity, they have to get their consent sheets. I don't know.
I just don't know. And I don't want to necessarily say that. I'm saying if it was 21 to 17, then whatever. It's just I don't know. Charges were dropped. He was proving innocent and all that stuff, but it is what it is. Now people are talking about him definitely being better than Morstead. Listen, at the end of the day, I was watching punt highlights of fucking Braden Mann, and he looked amazing, and then he sucked. So does Matt Ariza, whatever it is, does he let this?
I don't mind, dude. If you're signing him now, like, dude, like he's no longer getting the money. He was a 4th round pick, if I'm not mistaken, 4th or 5th round pick.
I think he was a 6th round pick. I could be wrong, but I think he was.
I think you're wrong about that. 4th, 5th round. I guess.
I think you're wrong.
All right, then we're looking at this right now, Joe.
I am. I got you.
Ariza,
a former 6th round pick by the Buffalo Bills. Weird, Kyle's right again. Okay, so we'll continue. We're hang on to those victories. Now I'm going to say that for another couple of years. Remember that one time you said Ariza was a 4th round pick?
Yeah, my fucked up on that
so Trey Graham.
Well, hold on, I didn't get to make my damn point.
I don't care about your point anymore. But fractured hip for Tua. That's what happened in college. But continue, Kyle.
Okay, so Ariza, I forgot my point now. Or fuck you, Joe.
Let's see. Did the punter? Well, I don't care about it. It's time to the practice. But again, I don't
I know my point. My point now is like, okay, he's not going to be making the type of contract that he was as a draft pick. Now you're just signing him he's just happy to have a job at this point. So I have no problem signing him for like pennies and then letting him compete with Morstead in camp. And like, clearly you can see who's better. They punt every freaking day. Go with the guy who's more how much I guess you still have to pay Morstead some because he signed some guaranteed money, but would you be able to save anything if you cut Morstead? I don't know.
I think the contract, and I could be wrong, but maybe it was like 1.2 and 1 million if it was guaranteed. Most of his contract was guaranteed. I know that at the minimum. So you'd be pretty much you'd be losing all the money you signed up for. So
Okay. But listen, I just want to go with the guy who's better. And the thing about Morstead is he's a little bit older. Ariza could be your guy for, a long time.
Yeah, I don't. Listen, there's so much stuff to clear up with that stuff. Was it a minor where he was 21 and the girl was 14? Was it 21 and 17? What was it? Contest? Listen, I could tell you that plenty of people, even in here, if you're 21 at a college party and a girl who 17, 18, you didn't necessarily know and she was good looking, are you making her break out her ID? Like, if that was the case, then it's much more understandable. Now, if it's a 13-year-old girl and you knew it, 14, okay, obviously it's really fucked up. But there's just so much gray area where it's like automatically, like, and I'm not getting into all this shit, Kyle, but you know what it is. Like, as soon as you're, it's not proven until, or innocent until proven guilty. It's guilty until proven innocent. Sometimes you're not even proven innocent because it's just that first headline and you're fucked. Like, it just is what it is nowadays. So there's a lot of gray area that I don't want to, I can't speak on, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but you know what I'm saying. As John Hassel says, it's Kyle rocking a Alice in Chains hoodie. I met Lane Stanley and
Staley.
Lollapalooza 92. Love that band.
Yeah, well, it's not a hoodie, it's a t-shirt. But that's awesome, man. Yeah, I saw them last summer. They were good, but definitely not the same without Lane. So yeah, man, that guy had some pipes.
Yeah, I was never a big concert guy. Like, I started going with my wife and stuff sometimes. I was like a really big fan of Linkin Park when Chester died and all that stuff. And I've been to like them and AC/DC. I remember this is not an indictment. This is an indictment on my aunt. She's she's kind of a piece of shit. It is what it is. But she's like a heroin addict, whatever. But she brought me and Tom, Tom, to it was a Linkin Park concert, but also at the concert was Korn. And it was Korn and Snoop Dogg with Linkin Park, which is a weird combo. But she was blacked out, passed out in the grass, and me and Tom were running around while Snoop Dogg's playing. Like, I've had some crazy concert experiences. That was funny. Can Mims be a poor man's Valdez Scantling?
No.
Could he? Can he? Well, could he and can he are different, right? To me, like, I think it's possible. Will he be? Probably not. Like, it's, starting, what do you have, like 3 catches last year? 4 catches, 5? I don't know. Joe really doesn't like Becton. I don't like the personality thing, right? Like, it's just at a certain, and maybe it's the old man in me. I don't know, I'm 30, but maybe I'm like a 60-year-old in a 30-year-old guy's body. I hate the Twitter stuff. I hate going out there on social media and making, it just does not help you. It does not help you in any way. So there's no point of doing it. So why fucking do it? So, Jordan, Victor, Joe, fantastic show with Tyson on Monday. Yeah, appreciate that. If you want to go back and get some more content, Let's Talk Jets did an interview with Tyson, or podcast, whatever, live stream with Tyson. Ran about an hour, so go check that out. Great channel over there. And also after this, I'm doing Jets Turbulence podcast as well at right about 8 o'clock. But I don't think it's live. I think they're going to play it later. So check them out as well. Blewett, spelled it wrong. It's okay. Yeah, just because Salah has been saying over and over the best 5 will play makes me think. Yeah. He really harps on the best 5, and I just can't see the best 5 not including both Becton and Brown. I don't see that including Mitchell or Turner. Is it it's Billy Turner, right? I forget his first name sometimes. So let's see.
Well, he had another part to the question. He also asked if McGovern ever played tackle. Not to my knowledge.
No, not to my knowledge either, but I don't think so. Nose Kill says he's from Finland.
Oh, very cool. Thanks, Nose Kills, for the
Finland
super chat.
Yeah, I appreciate the $2 super chat. You didn't have to do that. We'd have found it, but $2 nonetheless, or €2. Jan says Wilson QB1 in 3 years. LOL. Let's go, boys. Jan, you seem to have your Mr. Moneybags, Mr. Lawyer Moneybags. I would be willing to bet quite a few dollars that's not going to be the case. But unless you're talking about maybe he didn't say Zach Wilson, so he could be talking about a different one, Kyle. But what's your thoughts about Wilson being QB1 in 3 years after Rodgers is gone? Are you, in that instance, are you now going to extend his 5th-year option next year when Rodgers is going to be playing? What is a 5th-year option, like $13 to $16-ish million? I could be wrong, but so it's pretty hefty price for a quarterback. So you're going to pay him that much money to be behind Rodgers when he's not even going to prove that He's not even the capable backup right now. I don't care that he did a nice pass to Garrett Wilson 7-on-7. I don't want him as a backup quarterback right now. So how is he going to prove that he's worth 12, 13, 14, 16, 18, whatever $1 million next year? It's not going to happen, right?
I would bet and I'm not really too much of a gambling dude, but I'd bet a good amount of money that Zach Wilson is not the quarterback in 3 years from now.
I think it's tongue in cheek. I think Jan just trying to rile somebody up here.
Of course he is. I mean, he says LOL, and we know Jan. So thank you very much for the super chat.
NY Jets super fan, what's up, boys? Go Jets. What did I miss? Is there any why is there trouble in Paradise? Listen, at the end of the day, it's very, very hard to make headlines.
Hey, they're trying to, they got to find some ways to make some stories, man.
Trouble in Paradise with Becton. Well, at the end of the day, if you want to say like, okay, Becton was getting on our good side, kind of we were Paradise with Becton, and then
Joe, let's be honest though. I wanted to say this before.
He steered the plane directly into the Bermuda Triangle
2 weeks ago when you were praising Becton, and I gotta be honest, Joe. There's me saying it again. It came off as phony when you were praising Becton 2 weeks ago. I didn't believe you because I know how you feel about him. And then 2 weeks later, our very next stream, you're talking about him like this again.
No, and I don't know exactly what I said. I don't know what part you felt was phony. I think that he was.
You were just saying like he looks great. He's being more mature on social media.
He does look great.
You had to try to praise him. It didn't come off naturally.
Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's like because there's like that thing in the back of my mind. Like I know who he is on social media, and when things go bad, he's just going to make it worse. But he was starting to get on my good side. He was interacting with people. The workout thing, whatever. I don't. So many people post like workout photos and fucking I benched this today. I was like, shut the fuck up. No, nobody cares about what you did at your workout. Nobody cares about what you bench. Just shut up. Nonetheless, he still was interacting with fans, all that stuff. He seemed pretty cool. And then again, we were going to Paradise in the plane, right to Turks and Caicos, and he fucking just right into the Bermuda Triangle. That's where he decided to steer the plane. So whatever, now he's back on my bad side. So say what you want. Ty Johnson ran with a purpose. Oh yeah, dude, he probably had one of the better runs of last year. What game is that? It was
the Bears game.
Yeah, stupid acceleration on that play. Stupid. That was an amazing play. So. Let's see. I believe that late in the season and games December, January, February, we will run more Jet NASCAR packs. Oh yeah, you'll see. Hold on. Right end McDonald, right tackle Clemens, left tackle Johnson. No. You're never gonna have Q unless this is like a backup.
Why would Q be on the bench?
No, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but this is the backup NASCAR package, right? Like this is not what I'm running out there for pass rush. Again, JFM, Q inside. I'm taking those guys. Could I see situations where the Jets put JFM and Q inside, and then you put both Huff and McDonald as wide nines, and you completely isolate those tackles, and you attack those interior three with the linebackers and the D tackles? Sure. But Johnson, and you're talking about defensive tackles with Clemens and Johnson. I don't
mind I don't mind Clemens as like a 3-tech. He's actually okay there in like a pass rush situation. But I'd rather have JFM and Q on the inside, and then some of these speedy guys like McDonald and Huff on the outside. So yeah, but in an ideal situation, if he's well rested, there's no way Q's not on the field. And and if it's 3rd and 10 and it's the potential final play of the game, you can bet your ass that Q is going to be in the game.
And something we've talked about before, and something I mentioned on with Tyson and something in general. If they need to change, and I'll be extremely critical of Saleh if they don't change their defensive line rotations. If you're putting Al Woods in pass situations because you got to do the full hockey substitutions, it's going to be a massive problem for me. You have to change that shit this year, where you have packages based on the play, not just full rotations. And it didn't happen with receiver. There was legitimately games where Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, and Corey Davis were on the bench, and it was Braxton Berrios, Jeff Smith, and Denzel Mims. I was like, what are we doing on 3rd down in the red zone? Like, how? So that's that area you could really be critical of Saleh as a coach. So hopefully they change that. I have rabbit with tomatoes and rosemary on the stove right now. Smells great. Oftentimes for Jets games, I like to cook. It's so and like, this is like
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
It's a whole different thing. So long story short, when we're gone from the house for a really long time, My in-laws will watch the dog just because they lost their dog. They love my dog, all that stuff. They had a bunny den under their porch. My dog found the den, and there was like 4 bunnies just ripped in half under the thing. But I had to explain to him, like, rabbits are rodents. Like, they eat their own children and shit too. Like, don't feel bad for rabbits. It is what it is. And like, and just talking about rabbits, and some people would be like, oh, well, it's a really weird food to eat. Just imagine if we ate rabbit our entire life, and then somebody said, I'm going to eat that turkey or that chicken. You'd be like, the fucking thing with balls on its neck? Like, why are you eating that? So it's not weird. But yeah, rabbit's actually good. But I don't know why I want to get into that. But turkeys look quite weird with balls in their chin, right? So is there really anything that's that weird to eat? I don't know. Turkey's the weirdest looking thing in the world, and it sucks, right? I don't know.
Would you eat Rocky Mountain oysters?
No, there's very few things I would not eat. Rocky Mountain oysters, aka balls, testicles. And I've had blood pudding. I will not eat blood sausage. That's pretty much about it that I won't eat. But no, I'm not eating balls. I just can't. I can't. It's a mental block. I can't do it. McDonald's is fast as fuck. I hope so. I only eat vegan cows. Okay, yeah, we're starting to get into vegans and eating different stuff. Nani made some good points on McDonald's recent article, including that he has an inside move. I'm talking about I'm assuming you're talking about the inside spin move. Holy King, who doesn't love defense? Everybody can't wait for the top 25. Yeah, that's always fun, Kyle. The top 25 this year. It's stacked up, right?
Flacco, unfortunately, won't be there.
Flacco, yeah. I forgot. I completely forgot about that. You should not even remind me that you put Flacco in there last year.
You should just put him in there just to piss you off.
That was quite the move, and the chat roasted you as they should have, right? So,
all right, but Joe, in retrospect, does me putting Joe Flacco where I put him, does that look as bad as where you put Zach Wilson?
I put him like 18 or 19.
Okay, I didn't have Joe Flacco that high, and who was better?
With context, when I put Zach Wilson up there, yes, it was again. We had a vote, and you got roasted. So, we let the chat speak, and they spoke, and that was a shitty take by you, and you're not taking on the chat.
You thought when you put that voting poll up, you thought it was going to be a blowout. That
People
Kyle's an idiot.
Felt bad for you. JFM not an option inside. I think he should be on third down.
Why did you just skip over the last chat?
Which one?
You put it up on the screen, never read it.
I don't know which one I put up there.
It says Kyle's come to snuff. No. Kyle's come to snuff the rooster.
I don't know.
That's Alice in Chains song. Alice in Chains song. That was the last song they played when I saw them.
Got you. JFM should be an option inside, right? Like
JFM is better inside. Period. I'm tired of arguing with people about that.
Why are we on third down? Let's just say it's an obvious rush situation. Obviously, again, injuries and guys need to play as often, stuff like that. But ideally, he's a better rusher. And again, Quentin Jefferson numbers, all that stuff. But JFM is a better player than Quentin Jefferson, right? So put him inside because you have so many guys outside. Because with JFM outside, let's just assume JFM's outside on one of these plays, whatever the play is. And let's assume Carl Lawson's on the other side. You have first-round pick on the bench. You have another first-round pick on the bench. You have Huff, who's one of the better rushers in the league on a small snap basis, on the bench. You have Michael Clemens on the bench. It's just all those guys can't sit on the bench because JFM can't play inside because of whether it be just them being too stringent to their ideas or because of Quentin Jefferson. I like Quentin Jefferson, but not over having Huff outside or Lawson or whoever it may be. So I don't know. I guess Tina Turner did that happen?
Yeah, she passed away yesterday, I think.
Today
or 2 days ago, maybe. Yesterday or 2 days ago.
Yeah, R.I.P. I wasn't very overly familiar, but let's see. I think the plan for Becton, if he plays well, should be a tag and let him hit free agency. Yeah, I think a tag.
Yeah, I have no problem. Hey, listen, maybe 2 years of Becton, coincide with how long Rodgers is probably going to be on this team. I have no problem with that. But hey, listen, if he gives you 2 good years in a row, you have to re-sign him. 2 good years back to back. Plus the high draft status, he had a good rookie year. I mean, maybe part of the reason he had the injuries. Obviously the Van Roten. I think they were both freak accidents, but just really bad set of luck. But how much could the weight have played a role into that? I don't know. We'll see.
Rabbit is much better than turkey. I would argue that pretty much every single meat I've ever had is better than turkey. It sucks.
Every Thanksgiving, I got to hear this guy talk about how it's so dry.
It's the worst. it's the worst. And it's funny, as I was going to say, so we were in Turks and Caicos, and we were talking to a guy who's from Turks and Caicos. He's telling how he went to, it wasn't New York. It was somewhere around our area. And he's like, yeah, like I always see the commercials for Thanksgiving. I want to try turkey. He's like, it was terrible. I was like, thank you. Thank you. It is an awful meat. Oh, if you cook it really well, if you fry it, I could fry my fucking shoe and I'll eat it. Like, why are we talking about that? Turkey's just terrible. There's a reason you eat it once a year because it sucks. It's stupid. Can I have a roasted chicken and call it a turkey? Can we pretend it's a turkey because it's better? Are we keeping 4 tight ends? And I have to end pretty quickly after this, but
it's a possibility. It also depends who gets injured in training camp and things like that.
I also think a part of it, we talk about offensive line, we talk about defensive line with the 4 tight ends thing. And we talked about this, Keith Carter and just his, the system we're going to run in general has a pretty heavy emphasis on fullbacks and then being involved in the game. So where is that fullback coming from? Is it Nick Bawden? Could you not, if you carry Nick Bawden, you probably can't afford to bring on Zach Kuntz based on how the roster is going.
And
can Jeremy Ruckert play that role?
Kuntz can't block for shit. So
it's
if he could block, he'd probably be drafted a lot higher than he was. But he has a very uphill battle to make this roster, I think.
I think the Jets and Hackett and Keith Carter are going to deploy guys like, Ruckert or Uzama or Conklin in the fullback type role and see if they can hold their ground there. And if not, then you're going to have to carry a Nick Bawden or whoever it may be. And you don't have that 4th tight end. You might not have that, to me right now, like based on the roster, you might have 3 tight ends. You might only have 5 receivers. It's just, you got to carry at least 10 defensive linemen, probably at least 10 offensive linemen based on last year. So, let's see, JFM was good last year and arguably had a down year. He's solid as fucking put there inside anyways. Yeah, I agree with that. So I think the attitude. The 50 pounds Becton lost was just the water weight. Good night. Everybody's gonna go watch Flight 2020. Is it Flight 23? Flight 2023? I don't know.
I think it's Flight 2023.
With that being said, I don't want Hard Knocks. I think it's a foregone conclusion the Jets get Hard Knocks. I don't know why they haven't announced it. Now maybe it's a favor to the Jets. Like, hey, we won't announce the Hard Knocks until the Jets Flight 2023 is over. So you guys get your hub for that, whatever. I think it's a foregone conclusion the Jets are getting Hard Knocks, which, again, the guys who do Flight 23 are great, but it's in a very biased lens, right? So I would like to see, if, again, I don't want Hard Knocks. I want the distraction, but I'm definitely going to be tuning in for that and be more excited than I am for Flight 23, right?
The show is undoubtedly going to be a better production. So
Just
from pure entertainment value.
Well, though. They produce it well, but it's a Jets hype piece.
Yeah. Listen, I've been saying that stuff for so many years. I don't need to piss people off by saying it again.
So I got like 2 seconds. So I'm already 2 minutes late. Solzy says, I want a goddamn apology about your terrible Sopranos take. I put it out there that, like, Aaron Rodgers said he never watched Sopranos, and I put it out there.
I've never watched the show, so I can't.
Dude, watch the first season. You see how fucking corny that show is. It's so corny. It's like the like Italians who think they like in Jersey think they're real Italians, and they say like gabagool and they say mozzarella. It's like they don't say that in Italy. Like they say that it's like mozzarella in Italy. It's not mozzarella. It's like, what the fuck? You're made up your own language. So the fake Jersey Italian thing is fucking stupid to me. But that show is stupid. I'm sorry. It's cheesy. It's stupid. Nonetheless. Hawk, I'm one of the rare people who loves turkey, fresh off the bird, soup and sandwiches for a week after, stuffing and mashed potatoes. You're talking about all the ancillary things. The actual meat is terrible. Chicken's better. I hate the idea of Hard Knocks. They have distraction. Lions and Mets overhyped it for Hard Knocks. Eric Adams. Okay. Would you or Nania be interested in doing a post video on the wide 9 tech, how it changes other positions' responsibilities? Maybe Nania. Like I said, I have 26 reviews to do that are about 2 hours each, so I can't do that. But nonetheless, Italians and turkey. All right, Kyle. What's this last one? What are the ideal coverages to deploy with it? Yeah, maybe Nania. Maybe I'll tell Nania, hey, Mike wants you to do a wide 9 101 breakdown. Go. Maybe in the future, but definitely not right now. I have so many players to put out. I appreciate everybody sticking in the chat and chatting with us for the length of the show. I'll be back next week talking about, I have no idea, just talking to you guys. It could be 30 minutes. It could be an hour, 2, 3, depending on how long you guys carry it, and put some stuff in the chat. So I appreciate that. Kyle, any last words?
No. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it.
Hey, and Kyle, if there's a compliment of compliments right here, my girlfriend's naked. Well, then again, I don't know how she looks naked, but let's assume Bus is a good-looking guy and she's a slam box, you know. So get to work, Bus, and then finish your night off with maybe a sandwich and watching some Flight 23. We appreciate you guys.